What up, people of the internet? My name is Buck to the Plug, and welcome back to the channel. So, this isn't a huge channel shift. This is just me testing out an idea I had for a podcast with the working title of the Animationacs, where we, as in me and a friend, watch animated movies and talk about them. This first episode is about Pixar's The Incredibles. I'm doing it with my friend Rachel Unscripted. All of her links will be down in the description below. And the rest of the information about this will be down in the description also, so be sure to check that out because I want to keep this intro short and sweet because it's a long first episode and we are kind of workshopping it, so there's a lot of things to look out for, and there's a lot of things that we're going to improve on for the next episode, which we are already working on as this video is coming up. So to keep this short and sweet, let me know what you guys think about it and enjoy the first episode of the Animationacs. This is the sort of beginning. Rachel, help me out here. How do I start this thing off?
So we're talking about The Incredibles. I'm just still laughing. One of my viewers, Jay, just said, I'm on a call with a low tier god. Okay. I would start off with the brief synopsis of the movie. I think that makes sense.
Yeah, that sounds good.
How many times have you watched the movie? Let's see who would perform better with the synopsis.
You want me to give an accurate number, or just a general thing?
A general thing.
I have probably seen it in its entirety maybe 30 times.
So I feel like you would give a better synopsis for sure.
Okay, well, I'm not going to talk about it too much because we're going to say that in the notes and stuff. But The Incredibles is basically, I think it was Pixar's sixth ever animation under the Disney kind of brand when we started partnering up. It is a superhero film about a family, the Pars, about a dad trying to relive the glory days of being a hero, but also trying his best to be a good father, and he's kind of failing at both. And then it ends up getting the family in trouble, and end up doing some not so good things, and have to kind of be incredible and stop it.
Okay.
S tier.
Okay.
S tier explanation. It was released on October. I actually looked this stuff up.
Okay.
October 24th, 2004, which would make it 20 years old next month. No, not next month. 2 months? 3 months. This year will be 20 years old, which is insane.
Yeah, I kind of hate that.
Because the second one released 3-4 years ago.
Yes, I will request that we keep the mentions of Incredibles 2 at a bare minimum, please.
Legit, Rachel.
I have PTSD.
Rachel, I have never said this to you before, but I love you. I love you for that, because I was thinking the exact same thing. I actually wrote down here that we probably shouldn't talk about Incredibles 2.
Perfect.
I think for any future time we do it, I don't see us not watching it and talking about it if this is something that we see ourselves doing. But I think just for anything, I think to better contextualize, if this becomes a series, if we're doing movies that have more than one, we start off with that first one, and we don't need to make the next time we do this doesn't need to be The Incredibles 2. I'd prefer it not be. But yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly. Brad Bird directed this film, which is incredible. Brad also did Ratatouille and The Iron Giant, which are two phenomenal movies that I would love to talk about also. Ratatouille more than The Iron Giant. I've only seen The Iron Giant once, so if that ever happens, have you ever seen The Iron Giant or Ratatouille? I assume you have.
I've seen both of them.
Which
Not
one
that
do you
many
prefer?
times. I prefer Ratatouille because of the frequency, and I think The Iron Giant made me sad.
Okay,
What?
right. Ratatouille didn't make you sad? Hmm?
Apologies. I was interrupted. Um, can you repeat the question?
You're good. Ratatouille didn't make you sad?
No. What?
Damn.
No. It made you sad?
I mean, I'm just a general. I'm just like a sad person, so I think so. Uh,
Okay.
but no, I mean, yeah, I do agree with that. Ratatouille with that. Not because it made me sad. I actually prefer things that make me sad. It reminds me I can still feel. Um,
Oh.
uh, but yeah, so I like that. So Brad's directing this one, as he
Hmm.
did the second one, and he also voices a character in this movie, which we'll talk about soon. How many times have you seen The Incredibles? Do you think?
Um. Um. Maybe like 6 or 7 times. Not.
Okay.
And one of those times was recently, and it was. I would ask you to take a guess on how I watched that movie, like device and platform.
Did you okay? Like the time for this thing we're doing, or like the last time you watched it?
Time for this thing.
Probably on your phone,
Mm-hmm.
and I only I only know it's on Disney Plus.
No, it would be. I would watched it on my phone on a random account on TikTok.
That's so funny. That's so funny to me.
It was. I was like halfway through, and I was like, "This is." I didn't realize. It kind of made it go by a lot faster though, because of the like scrolling.
You just scrolled and it was scenes of The Incredibles.
It did, and then I did end up watching it today for real. Um,
Doom scroll the entire movie is crazy. Um, no, that's actually insane. That might be the title for this.
watching Incredibles on TikTok because I don't really want to get too deep into it, but I was not. I don't have Disney Plus already, so I had to like borrow somebody's account.
Hey, none of the accounts I have are mine, so that's not even an issue here. Which is what's crazy is that I own a lot of those accounts, but only for like very specific. I remember having this conversation with one friend where like I have Hulu, I have Peacock, I have Paramount, I have Disney, I have HBO Max, but like not on recurring subscriptions because I don't use them enough. Um, like Netflix probably has maybe two things I want to see often. Disney, I mean, it's Disney. It has probably everything I want to see, but nothing that like every day on everyday basis. So luckily, I have family that just I steal their accounts and put my little profile on their account. So no, but I didn't even think
Mm.
about the TikTok thing. That probably could have helped me out at work because I was watching this movie at work and taking notes at work, completely ignoring work because this was way more fun to just watch The Incredibles. My boss be walking by like, "Is that The Incredibles?" Yeah, I'm watching The Incredibles.
Yeah, I can
uh,
say it now. When I used to work in retail, we had like like the storage rooms in the back, and I used to like go back there and pretend that I was organizing stuff. And I watched like 2 seasons of The Office on shift, and it was the best. I got almost caught once, but I ended up like I had some stuff organized, and I was like, "Yeah, look what I'm doing," and it was fine. But that was like my go-to. People asking me like, "Oh, do you have anything in the back?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna go watch TV now."
yeah, I actually should like if I had a decent charging port at my job, I would probably just watch stuff the entire shift. Um, as a supervisor, we don't usually do too much, so I just like watch episodes of House or um, maybe like cartoons, which is another thing I hope to get into. Kind of very short form animation, like if this is something that we just see ourselves doing. get into like shows, and because a lot of the cartoons that we probably grew up on, like a lot of them are like just generally shorter, not like full 30-minute episodes of animation, like almost like how like shows like Gumball or regular show would be like 11 minutes, and they just put two 11-minute episodes together to make them 30 minutes. And we can just kind of like pick and choose and kind of talk about them in that regard. If we remember them that fondly. I don't know if you grew up watching a lot of cartoons. I feel like I've asked you this before. Do you even like animation?
Yeah, I grew up watching a lot of TV. I realized the other day that I spent a lot of time alone as a child, so I watched more than I should have. I but my main thing, I think the only thing that's really stuck with me is why I keep making content with it is SpongeBob because I don't know, I don't know what it is about SpongeBob. Oh, SpongeBob and Naruto. Those two are like I can't be depressed when I'm watching that. I'm not
Based.
thinking about anything else. I'm watching that show.
Based. Do you have a favorite SpongeBob episode? I always say like when SpongeBob comes up, even in my adult life, that I'm pretty sure, besides from like the new stuff, because I think that show's still going on. Um, Aside from a lot of the new stuff, I'm pretty sure I've seen every episode of SpongeBob pre 2014, maybe. Like a lot of like the OG classics, like the first maybe 8 to 10 seasons. Do you have like a favorite, or like one that just stands out? Like, I'm gonna go watch this episode, and it's gonna be the funniest, or the cringiest, or just the ist of why I love this show. Like this episode encapsulates why I love SpongeBob so much.
The last one that I watched, I was like, I would watch that again, is when Plankton and Mr. Krabs like switch places, and Mr. Krabs is just like,
Oh,
yeah, like naked, trying to steal the Krabby Patty formula, and they're like shooting. Patrick's like shooting clothes out of a cannon to try to dress him. And it's just
oh,
crazy that it was like a swiper moment because a bra landed on him. He's like, "Oh, you got me," and it's like he just
just to
stopped
put
trying
clothes on him.
immediately. Yeah,
I also love how urgently it became. I also love how urgent it became when he was in there, as opposed to like when Plankton showed up. Because when Plankton shows up, Mr. Crab literally just pick him up and flick him out. But like crabs come through, like they set off sirens. SpongeBob like red alert, red alert.
yeah, it's really good. I love that episode. I think it's really like I like when animation just like holds its time. Like there's a lot of things I used to watch it I would never turn on again. But
Yeah,
SpongeBob is like one of those I will watch that probably for the rest of my life as long as I have access to it.
and it's something that really stands the test of time. Yeah, just that cartoon. It will never not be funny. Like a lot of the jokes that hit 10 years ago still hit the same now, even more so than I'm an adult, and I get high sometimes. Um,
I
so
felt that way about The Incredibles too.
yeah, I was laughing so loud at work at a lot of the stuff I saw, and because it really makes you this film, and we'll get into it, but like this film is not for kids. Like it's an animated film, and 2004 Pixar is probably at its most innocent with Monsters Inc. and Toy Story, but this was not a kids movie. Um, uh, so going back for this rewatch and like genuinely watching it for the purpose of taking notes, like analyzing everything and saying the movie word for word. I used to always say that there was probably only one movie I could say word for word, and that was Shrek. I'm pretty sure The Incredibles is now taking that list too. Like I was saying lines by
Wow,
lines in their voices. Like it was a really fun time.
that's crazy. I I don't think that movie wouldn't be easy to memorize for me. Shrek is easy. I don't know why.
Because everyone in that everything about this movie is so good. Like the acting,
Mm-hmm.
like Craig, Holly, everyone, the kids, everyone that played every side character, Syndrome, every one of them was just like on their A game. Like I don't like in being like a theater nerd and really appreciating that kind of stuff. It is absolutely insane, like how good these actors are at like an edit, because you have to you have to be another type of director to give actors voice direction as opposed to being on a stage, because you have to convey so many emotions just with your voice, And these guys, every single one of them, it's just like, oh my god, like this could be like a live action thing, and like it just would not be better because it was made for this style. Um,
Yeah, I think that about a lot of animation. Like, I don't want to say I prefer, but I always will defend animated movies because I feel like, okay, here we go. Live action takes away like that element of, I don't even know how to describe it. It's like you don't have to take it seriously so you can enjoy it more.
yeah,
And you're not like automatically or like subconsciously comparing things to real life. I
yeah,
like need that sometimes in a movie because no matter how much I try not to nitpick, certain things will happen and it'll like break the immersion. Immersion. Oh my god.
I think you said it right the first time. It definitely is something that because this movie is still it's very grounded even for a movie about superheroes, but like it also at times doesn't take itself too seriously because it's animated and it's, you know, a cartoon in a way. So that's something I always appreciated, but it didn't take away from, like, those times didn't take away from it. You know, it always added to it, which I think is always great when movies can do that. But
Yeah.
uh, while we're sitting here singing his praises, I think it's time to start talking about The Incredibles. So I wrote here like the stylized. So first of all, one thing I didn't know when I was younger or even cared about was that The Incredibles is like an old movie. Like it takes place in like the 50s or like early 60s. Um, which I think you can see on like a newspaper date or something like that. But they have this stylized 60s cold open, like a confessional from like a reality show, and they have like the Pixar opening logos and like Frozone, Mr. Incredible, and Elastigirl, like, you know, have their mics attached and they're making jokes and they're like, you know, I save people, and they like it's still sick. Elastigirl starts her "I don't think so" motif, like she's like, you know, girl power, like, what, think I'm gonna leave the world to be saved by men? You know, I don't think so.
Mm.
She said that several times throughout the movie. Bob tries to get up, like he's like, I just cleaned up this mess. Can we keep it clean for 10 minutes? And he like stands up and tries to take the microphone off, and then the lady's like, no, we're not done. And like the camera cuts. It was always a sick opening to me.
I feel like I quite literally did just watch it and no, I can no longer visualize that. It's gone. I think because I got so caught up like towards the end of the movie and then I started to have like realizations about the whole thing put together. I hated that. I was like, I wish I would have caught on to this a lot sooner because it's really cool. But yeah, I think I really like the like immediate positioning of their like personalities and their like where they contrast. It was very captivating for me. I like seeing people like especially like their banter is like yeah, I can relate to that. I kind of hate when I don't know how to explain it. Like I feel like sometimes animated movies with families kind of there's like no chemistry between the parents. They're just like there. There's like a married couple doing stuff. But
It's
they
like, we're
had like it was
married,
like
we're
these
together. Yeah.
yeah, and these like animated characters had so much chemistry. It's like, yeah, okay. This is really like I was very immersed in their relationship. I was rooting for them. And normally I don't care about like relationships in animated movies at all. I think they did that really well.
Yeah, I wasn't. I wanted Mrs. Incredible for myself. So anyway, the Incredibles theme song plays, and it is still just as sick now as it was 20 years ago. Like this song kicks off with those horns, like the da 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 da, and I start losing.
Yeah.
I get goosebumps. Like it's not the first time this happens. Like those horns went off, and I got goosebumps. And just a quick side tangent, I was like, so just even with superheroes in general, like I'm a huge fan of Hans Zimmer. I don't know if you know who that is. He's a composer.
Yeah,
Um,
I know it.
oh
I
shit,
love
Rachel,
him.
he's incredible. He's a big reason Man of Steel isn't like my favorite superhero film, because I listen to that soundtrack like just a part of my everyday playlist because he just kills it. Like, so superhero themes is of like of that nature. Like like they did such a good job with this. But when the movie starts, I see real guns. I see assault rifles in a PG movie
Mm.
firing at cops, and the cops are fighting back. and we're already off to the races. And Mr.
Mhm.
Incredible's like on his way to his wedding. We don't know who he's getting married to yet, but he's on his way. He's in a suit. He has like a kind of police scanner in the car saying that like tells him what's going on. The cops, crooks are fighting. He's like, I still got time, and he hits his. I put this in. He hits his suit putter honor button, which is exactly how I wrote it in the notes. He
Yeah.
presses it. The car starts driving by itself. It is like 1956, by the way. The car starts driving by itself. He leans back. It just like covered. Like, is it like a hologram? Like it just squeezes it on him. Like he puts his
Yeah.
hands up. He puts his hands up. The gloves come on. He hits another button, and the car shoots probably 1,000 miles per hour down a residential street. Like,
Yeah, I really like I don't know why. There's certain things that like slip your mind as a kid or you're not paying attention to how odd that would be. But like watching it this time when he got dressed in the car, I was like, hell yeah. Like right over the suit. And then I
over
also
the
thought
suit.
like, damn, that's
Over the
hot.
suit.
That must be hot. Like
Bro, I
there's
know
no
it's stinking there.
it
Bro,
has
come
to.
on now. Absolutely disgusting. Whoever installed the brakes in this car needs to get a raise because an old lady walks into the street and he taps the brakes and it just complete halt. Like I need them to do my brakes. Mine are just non-existent. It was incredible. No pun intended. But there's a cat in a tree, typical superhero trope. Instead of climbing the tree or like jumping, that's not his thing. He picks up the entire tree from its roots and start shaking the tree like rapid, like aggressively. And this cat, I don't know if this owner is abusing this cat, but this cat does not want to go back to this owner. Like he is abusing Mother Nature with this tree, and it's like I've always hated this old lady for real because she has like this voice that's very. I've never heard like an uncanny valley voice, and he's like Mr. Incredible, and like just walks out into the street, totally pisses me off. He shakes this tree, and he can hear his scanner going off. The closer the crooks and cops get to him, and he starts shaking it even harder. A crazy visual here. Mr. Incredible whips the tree back into the middle of the street, and these bad guys don't need to be taken to jail. They need an ambulance because there's no way they survived after that. Like that was an insane visual, and their bodies jerked out of the car, like not through the windshield, like out the windows. Like it is
Yeah.
insane. Uh,
And that was like the perfect way to display his strength, like right out the bat, right off the bat. Oh my god, I'm I'm trying to remember. I remember cracking up about him picking the tree up and shaking it, and the cat because when you said like, oh, I don't know if she abuses her cat, I would say that cats are just assholes. Like my cat never been like at most she gets tapped on the head and she acts like I have attempted to murder her. And sometimes she'll run up trees and it's like you I can't explain it. The way that they're gripped on a tree, like sometimes it's not so high that I can't grab her. She will be like part of the tree. She's not coming down. She doesn't care. And I have to leave her there. It's like I don't know why. So when that I was like cracking, I was like, yeah, that's accurate for a cat. It's
I
not
also
getting
thought it was
down.
funny. I also thought it was funny that that literally having super strength, like this cat is like resisting it.
Yeah.
Like like this cat is probably stronger than Mr. Incredible.
This
Um
was like, yeah,
he
accurate. And he said, no, I'm not coming down.
yeah, I still love cats though. They're the best. Um he goes to respond to another call and there's a child in his car, Rachel. There's a child. Like if you went to your car and like opened it up, beep beep, and got in the door, and there was a child you didn't know, like in the passenger seat, he goes ready for takeoff. I would like, bro. He says ready for takeoff. He says my name is Incredible. Wait, Mr. Incredible doesn't remember him. He's like, oh, but then he's like, oh, you're that kid from the fan club. Calls him Buddy. He says, "My name is not Buddy. I'm your sidekick, Incrediboy." And he's like, "Look," it was like a cool detail. He said it like under his breath, but he's like, "Look, I've done everything. I waited in line. I took the pictures. I signed every single piece of merchandise yet." Like he's just like getting annoyed. And he's like, "Look, man, like
Yeah.
this isn't what this is." But he's it's like annoyed, but like concerned. Like the stuff I do is real. Like you're not tagging along with me to go stop criminals. It's not a good look. But he kicks him out with like the injector seat after he said like I'm your number one fan. Which I would have like actually kicked him out, like because now my safety is compromised, and I don't care how old you are, buddy.
Well, okay. I typically like when you started off, I was like, yeah, I would have kicked like get out of my car. But also, given his like him starting to explain that he's like a fan and he's yada yada who, I'm one of those like I like to protect children's emotion or the emotions or their like emotional state. I don't want to be the person that traumatizes you. That could be your parents, your friends. I don't care. It's not ever gonna like you're never gonna have a memory, and it's bad from me, not me. So I would have like let him down so gently. And that would have been difficult because he was an airhead about it. Like he was like gum on a shoe. But I wouldn't have been so callous about it because he was just like, oh my God. And then the kick, the ejection out of the car, that did crack me up also. Because it's like,
Like
you know,
straight through the roof,
that was
safely
a
on the
useful tool.
grass, takes off again. Um, you talk about that. Yeah, I wish you would have told that to Mr. Incredible in about 10 minutes later, because he absolutely destroys him, but we'll get there. He goes to confront this bad guy on the roof who like took this old lady's purse, and he gets knocked out from a fist that comes off screen, and it's revealed to be Elastigirl, who, Jesus Christ, I'm going to try to keep this as PG as possible. But they start eye fucking each other crazy. Like they start going crazy style here, and they're arguing about who got to the bad guy first. And this was funny. The guy gets up, like the bad guy stands up. He's like, "Look, pal, the lady got me first," and he gets punched again. Um, and then Mrs. Incredible, or I should just say Elastigirl at this point, says that says that he needs to be a bit more flexible after going over his shoulder and in between his legs before disappearing into the sunset. And me and Mr. Incredible both whistle at the same time.
Oh my
And then
God.
Frozone appears, and he's chasing an attack helicopter. I'm like, yo, do they live in Gotham? Like, what is like?
Yes,
He is. There's
absolutely.
just like at first, I think my kid brain probably thought he was like tagging along to like a police helicopter, like oh the superheroes are working alongside the cops. But like I looked at it, and like the helicopter is shooting bullets, like it's just attacking the city. Insane. This is all happening like the span of like a few hours. This is the same day.
Yeah, I this it was at the point where that conversation between Mr. Incredible and Elastigirl where I started to psychoanalyze him like on site. I was like, "Oh, okay. This is interesting." Um and then like the scenes following that so much more. I turned into a little like psychologist. I was like I think the first thing that I caught on to was when Elastigirl told him like you need to be more flexible. It just kind of put in my head like, okay, obviously he's like a like not a stickler, but his identity is very like solid and unyielding. Like that's just what he's not like bending or doing anything that he doesn't want to do. He's doing everything the way that he wants to do it, like hence shaking the cow off the tree instead of like just climbing it and grabbing it or arguing about who knocked the bad guy out first or whatever. Like I was like, okay, I'm on to you. You're giving dad energy right now. Like you're not even a father, you're giving dad.
Yeah, daddy. Um, and then okay, this is where like the movie takes off for me. So I'm pretty sure you remember this part too. The most relatable thing happens the next scene, and I definitely didn't understand this part as a kid. Definitely didn't understand this part as a kid, but there, Mr. Incredible, he stops an unalive attempt, and there's a guy on top of this building. He jumps. Uh, People are screaming at the bottom. He runs and tackles him through a building, which I would want to be dead after that. Um, and then he says, like, I think you broke something. So he says, I think you broke something. And he says, with counseling, I'm sure you'll come to thank me, which is absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
That happened in a kids PG film. Like I said, this is not a kids film. So then we meet one of the funniest characters in all of Pixar history, Bon Voyage.
Yeah. The names
Bon Voyage.
the names immediately got me like onto their like literal humor. It took me a while to pick up on that. I was like, no, this is so funny. The French accent, the
The
bombs.
French
Okay.
accent, he comes out. My favorite part is he comes out, he bursts through the wall, and there's like a French musical cue that plays. Like he bursts through,
Hmm.
and you start hearing cellos and violins, and you're like, what are we in Matrix? And Mr. Incredible says his name very intimidatingly, like Bon Voyage, and like I can't even take it serious. Like imagine like imagine like all your favorite comic book characters meeting their villain. Imagine Superman walking into a room. He goes Zod. Like that's like who is about to be a showdown. Mr. Incredible goes Bon Voyage, and I start laughing even harder. So,
Yeah. His
oh man,
entrance was very dramatic and it was spot on. I love the way like that literal humor was really it kept me like my note taking accelerated after that. I was like, yeah, hell yeah.
yeah,
I
this is
see
gonna be
what you're
good.
doing here. Nice woman.
um, and there's only subtitles when he speaks because he only speaks in French. And he says his name back. He's like Mr. Incroyable, like which is I probably
Yeah.
didn't need a fucking cough drop after that. um, Mr. Incredible is about to beat the shit out of this guy, and then Buddy comes back. Buddy shows back up, and at this point, I'm hoping Mr. Incredible throws this kid out the window, right? Um, because I forgot at first how he got up there. Like it's been like a while since I seen the last time I seen it from like now. I forgot how he got up there, and he's like, I'm in these rocket boots, and I go, okay, that's actually pretty admirable that this kid invented these rocket boots, and he tells him Mr. Incredible tells him to fly home, buddy. I work alone, which crushed me because he's like, because Buddy almost tries to like, he's like, oh, I built these to fly. Can you fly? Because he can't. Mr. Incredible cannot fly. And he's like, fly home, buddy. Fly home, buddy. I'm just gonna start saying that, everyone. But he's like, okay, I'm gonna go. Okay, no, there's a part that happened before this where Mr. Incredible has Bon Voyage pinned up against the wall, and he looks over at Buddy and he says something in French, and he says it so aggressive. I should have wrote it down, but he says something like, your outfit looks ridiculous, but it sounded like like, and it was
Okay.
so unnecessarily aggressive for a child. But I still laughed. It was funny. Okay, Rachel, this is crazy. So Buddy says he's gonna go get help, right? He says he's gonna go get help from the police. As he's running away, Bon Voyage throws a bomb on the cape of this child. Now, I
Insane,
don't
actually.
I don't like Buddy, but I definitely throw a bomb.
Bomb on the kid. Okay, you know what? Here's what I'll say. Because I was psychoanalyzing everybody, I feel like that would have hurt less than what Mr. Incredible did to him. The bomb would have hurt less
It probably would have. Fly
for
home, buddy,
him.
just
Yeah.
blow up. Uh, oh my god. Do you agree with that? Do you agree that he should have this decision to have Bon Voyage throw a bomb on this child's cape? Um, uh, which it was.
He's a super villain. I don't ever have any like I have no standards for them. There's something that happens later on in the film that kind of set like open that possibility up for me all of a sudden, but
And
at
it's
that
crazy that I
point
know
it's like
exactly
no.
what you're talking about, and I cannot wait to talk
Mhm.
about that. Um, so Mr. Incredible jumps out the window with Buddy, trying to hold on to him, um, to get the bomb off, and he's like, "Get off! You're messing up my flight patterns." Which, okay, um, he gets the bomb off, and then it lands on the train tracks and blows up the train tracks just as the train is coming, conveniently. Mr. Incredible gets on the tracks to stop it, and I love this moment a lot. Like before the train hits him, like he winces, like he makes like this grimace, like this is gonna hurt, even though he has super strength, so it kind of humanizes him a bit.
Yeah.
which I really love. Like, you talk about psychoanalyzing, I love stuff like that. That was incredible. Like, for an animated film in 2004, didn't need to happen. I'm glad it happened. Um, he has a talk with these same dipshit cops who are so incompetent that they can't find a French mime with bombs strapped to his chest. So they depend on Mr. Incredible more than like even GCPD hated when Batman solved crimes before them. Like, they actually had beef with the entire
Yeah.
precinct. It was absolutely incredible. Like, these guys are like, yo, we have superheroes, man. What do we need tenure for? Pensions? Nah, forget all that. Um, so Mr. Incredible, like, I would love to help find this mime, but I have somewhere to be, right? It's because he's late for his wedding to
Hmm.
Elastigirl. And Frozone is his best man. So it already, like, these characters' relationships already, yeah.
Yeah, I remember noting that starting from the beginning, like when he went after, I don't know if they were like robbers, the criminals in the car, and he keeps saying like, "Oh, I still got time. I still got time." And he went after the burglar with the purse. I got time. I still got time. Um, and I was like, "Ooh, this is really establishing like his priorities.
Yeah.
Interesting, or lack
Like,
thereof."
instead of, and yeah, you're absolutely right. I didn't even catch that. It's like, that can be a really great, like, it sets like that precedent of like, this should be like the most important day of your life. It's not
Hmm.
like you're gonna disappear forever. In fact, if Mr. Incredible wasn't so caught up in superheroing, um, the stuff that we're about to talk about might not have even happened. Like, the rest of the movie wouldn't have even happened, you know? Because instead of being there early to get stuff ready and actually be there for your wife, like, the entire ceremony started before him. Like, even your best
Hmm.
man is there at
Yeah.
your wedding before you.
It's also
Um,
that like she already walked down the aisle. She's
she's
standing
already
there.
there.
She's
She's by
at the
herself.
altar. That's sick.
she's
That's sick.
she's
I
by
would have
herself.
left. Personally, there's no way. Nobody's gonna
Couldn't
make
be
a fool
me.
out of me like that.
Couldn't be
No.
me. At your wedding, everyone's there at your wedding except you, because I still got time. I still got time. Like, yeah, that was a really cool and great catch there. I didn't even like catch that. Um, there's a cool detail when they're getting married, like where the priest is talking. Like, the priest is like, I assume, giving like the whole, marriage is this and love is that, and but like his voice is kind of drowned out because Elastigirl and him are talking.
Hmm.
And while they're talking, he's like, she asked him like, I need you to be like ready for that. Like, are you ready for that? And um, he says I do, and it lines up perfectly with what she says and what the priest
Yeah,
says,
that was
which
great.
that was
It
really
was
really cool.
really. It was really
Um,
good.
um, there's also supers at the wedding, which I didn't catch as a kid. It's like a frame and you'll miss it kind of thing. Like, there's a frame which shows the people there. Dyna Guy's there, Gazer Beam's there. Supers we'll talk about later. Edna is also there, which 20
Mm.
years later I had no idea, like, that scene, because it looked like, damn, there's only like 20 people came to this fucking wedding, man. But they're all supers, which is cool. I
Yeah.
didn't catch that. Um, that'll be important later. So this is where the movie picks off, right? So fast forward, Mr. Incredible is being sued by a man named Oliver Sansweet, which is probably the most beta name I've ever heard in my life. Um, it's the guy who tried to unalive himself because he broke
Yeah.
his neck. And then I had to look this up, Rachel. I had to look this up because I've been hearing this line wrong for years, right?
Mm.
So as a kid, like, when they're having that argument, and then the lawyer's like, Mr. Santry didn't want to be saved. Mr. Santry didn't ask to be saved. And the result of Mr.
Yeah.
Incredible's actions causes him deadly pain. And Mr. Incredible goes, I saved your life. And I thought he said, you didn't save my life, you ruined my neck.
No, he
Because he has
said.
on, he said, what did he say, Rachel?
He said. Mr. Incredible said, "I saved your life," and he said, "You didn't save my life. You ruined my death." And honestly, I feel like that was poetic. I liked it a lot. I was like, you know what? This is like one of those glass half empty, glass half full moments.
You ruined my death.
That took me
That
out a
is
little.
that has to be the greatest line ever said in a Pixar. Actually, there's one better than this towards the end of the film. I can't wait to talk about it. Oh god, I heard that clear for the first time. I was like, oh my goodness. I got lightheaded just from
Yeah, I it reminded me like that situation, and I forgot. Well, we were talking about it earlier, like when he saved his life and everything that happened in that building. Um, just one more psychoanalysis point. I thought it was really cool. So there's like Elastigirl kind of building up this concept of him when she's like, you need to be more flexible. And as she did it in the wedding too, she's like, you need to be more than Mr. Incredible. Um, and then while they were saving, what is his name? The guy whose death was ruined.
Oliver Sweet.
When he was saving Oliver Sansweet and Buddy or Miss Incredible came and he said something, it was stuck with me. He was like, you always say be true to yourself, but you never say what part to
Of
be
yourself
true
to be true
to.
to. Yeah.
And I was like, oh, they're setting this up so well. And I don't know, something about that, like the little contrast that happen between that and like you say, I saved your life, you ruined my death. I like the flip arounds. It's really good.
Yeah, that line, and just this entire interaction is going to be really important later. I'm glad you pointed that out. Which part of yourself to be true to? That's a great moment. But what that did was start an anti-superhero movement, which basically forced the government to hide all supers and forgive their past actions and discretions. This entire opening segment goes like the first 15 minutes of this film are absolutely incredible. I'm gonna say that word a lot. um, but 15 years later, I'm gonna start referring to him as Bob because that's what he is for the next 45
Hmm.
minutes. Is Bob is making old women cry because he works at an insurance agency, and oh my god, man! Like Bob, he's actually still being a superhero because he helps this old lady out with her like insurance, like finding all these loopholes.
Yeah.
This movie came out 20 years ago, like. I could like we're still doing this today. Like this it is extremely relatable. She's like, I'm on a fixed income, I can't afford this, and he helps her out, and it's like, but he's saying you definitely shouldn't do this, and you definitely shouldn't call this number, and you definitely shouldn't file for this, and she's like, and he looks
Yeah.
up, like looks above his cubicle, or like his coworkers, and like no one's paying attention. Mr. Huff isn't around, and he's like, I'm sorry, ma'am, I know you're upset, like very loud. Because that's what this whole like this entire vibe of this off like this, like they do like an overhead shot of the workplace. I'm like, I would rather just
Hmm.
pull an Oliver Sand suite than work here. This is crazy.
Yeah, the
Um,
color palette was just pure gray, like
just
slate.
gray
Everything's
slate,
dead.
like shaded, and like it's absolutely terrible. Made me want to cry.
They
Um,
nailed the fluorescent overhead lights in an office space, so like it's so accurate.
right, it was absolutely it sucked. And the old lady leaves crying like he told her to, because that's what these people feed off of is cries. Then this bitch ass. I swear to God, I always hated Mr. Huff. I always hated Mr. Huff. He hates when Bob does his job and covers for people who have insurance. And he comes in like slams paper like you violate things on the workers' policy and insurance. Says a bunch of words I don't understand. And he's like, their policy clearly covers them. Don't tell me about their coverage, Bob. I don't want to hear about their coverage. Like I love that's like an all
You
timer
got his
line.
cadence right.
Don't I want to hear about their coverage? Like very fat, like almost like an auctioneer. Like it's crazy. Um, I hate this dude. I hate this dude with a passion. I don't want to talk about him. I hate this dude so
I
much.
like his
This is
hair.
like
I like that. I like the way that he was designed. It's kind of like, yeah, you look exactly like how you sound and how you act. It's perfect.
absolutely perfect. It's almost like he's compensating too because he's like the head of the office, but he's also like 3 feet tall. Um, and he's talking to one of the strongest people on the planet, which is incredible. I love the duality of stuff like that. It's very subtle,
Hmm.
but I love that. We meet Dash and Violet in an all-timer scene. This is one of my favorite scenes in the entire film. Uh, we get. Can you explain this scene actually, Rachel? The principal's office with Dash.
Yeah, so basically, Elastigirl has to come, or Mrs. Incredible has to come to the
Helen.
school because Helen has to go to school because Dash was called into the principal's office, and she's like sitting there, and she's like, "Okay, like why am I here?" Essentially, and the teacher, the like slamming his hands down, he had really been over it, so he was like really pissed at Dash because he believes that Dash was putting thumbtacks on his chair.
Believes.
And so Helen's like, okay, well, like, did you see him do it? Which I thought was like that's such a specific question to ask. Um,
And
and
then
he was
and
like,
then he
"Yeah,
said no.
no." He said he did. He said he has footage. He
And
put
then
on his
okay, he
footage.
plays the footage.
He believes that he saw it. Like he plays the footage, and all you can see is Dash is like moves a little bit forward. It
There's
almost
like
looks
a
like he's just
frame. You see
adjusting
like the footage,
himself.
there's like a glitch in the frame, like when he moves.
Tiny, tiny. Like it would have looked like he was just like sitting up in his chair or something. And the teacher goes ballistic. He's like, "See right there." And that one cracked me up so hard. Like, I can't imagine, like, because sometimes you can't prove that
Getting
you're right,
gaslighted.
but you're right. That energy he had, he was like, the silence surrounding that too was like, oh my God, no. He's like,
And
he's right there. Everybody's just kind of looking like, oh,
it's right there. And
okay.
even the principal's like squinting his eyes. Like, right
Yeah.
there. Right as I'm sitting down. I don't know. I don't know how he does it, but there's no tack before I move. And after he moves, there's a tack. Coincidence? I
I
think
think
not.
not. That is my favorite.
And then he
I was
goes, this
like,
is my favorite line. This is my favorite line of the entire segment. He goes, Bernie.
oh,
Don't
don't you
Bernie
Bernie.
me.
Yeah, that was good.
He calls Helen's son a rat in front of her face. calls
Yeah.
Hel- calls this kid a rat in front of his parent. The principal says, you can go ahead and leave. We're sorry about this. He's like, you're letting him go again. This isn't the first time this has happened. Goes, he's guilty, says it over and over and over. Like he's like moving this chair like as they're walking out. Dash has this smile, like he's guilty, guilty. He says guilty 47 times. Guilty, guilty, guilty. He hates this kid. um,
Honestly, love that
uh,
for him. I love the smirk while he's walking out, like that little cocky little march walk he has. I was like,
he
yeah,
knows he
he's
got away
amazing.
with it, but Helen doesn't know because of course she knows that his kids have superpowers. So he's like, you got to stop doing that. Meanwhile, Violet is being the biggest weirdo in town. As it's implied that she waits outside of the school for Tony. Okay, I know how to say it, but for my notes I actually just put Tony R because Reidinger, I don't even know who came up with that, but they should be fired. Tony
Well,
Reidinger. He comes out,
actually,
and he's like this typical high school hottie. All the girls like him. He swears like he walks by Violet and he does a double take, but Violet disappears, and she goes, "He looked at me. Get a in
yeah.
life.
Okay,
Get a
okay.
life."
Hear me out. So, I was talking earlier about how like there's a lot of like literal humor, and I was thinking about Violet's name and how it's like quite literally because she can make herself invisible, and Violet is like the has the shortest wavelength in the
Oh,
light thing. I wrote it down. Hold on. Hold. Violet has the shortest wavelength of light in the visible light spectrum. And so technically he did see her. He looked at her. He did. She
he
was
did.
there.
He was there.
Um, but I thought it was really interesting that they like her name and that coincidentally.
It's funny you bring that up too. I was gonna say this for like a sort of halftime intermission segment, but now that's like a perfect segue. So when I was like watching a bunch of videos to just add more substance to the pod instead of just talking about the movie, Brad, when he does the powers for the family, like kind of all represent like Bob being the father was like, fathers are typically always looked at as superheroes from their kids being like the strongest person. So he has super strength. Moms are constantly being pulled in every single direction. So that's why
Mm-hmm.
Elastigirl can stretch Mr. Fantastic style. Dash being the energetic kid that he is. Kids are always running around up to no good doing stuff. So that's why he got the speed. And Violet being kind of an angsty teenager. Also, like I said,
Mm-hmm.
her name being Violet. Tells us she would want to be invisible and kind of hide herself from the world, which I think we all kind of went through at a certain age. Just like, don't talk to me, I'm not here, I'm invisible, I'm just gonna blend in. So I thought that was really cool that you brought that up.
Yeah.
Cut to Bob, which it'll never get old to me. Bob is in 5 o'clock traffic, and this dude looks miserable. Like I've never seen a more miserable looking
Oh my
animated
God.
character
I
than
love
Bob
that scene.
in 5 o'clock traffic.
I really enjoyed it because I immediately was like, oh, this is that thing that they're doing. So like, I don't know at what point. Oh, they were in the car when they were coming home from picking up Violet, and Dash was like, he kept questioning why he couldn't do things, and Helen was just like, we need to fit, like the world wants us to fit in. And then it was like the scene after that conversation was Bob in the car, not fitting in his car. Like quite literally just the massive in
It's
comparison to
this
his car.
huge guy. There's like huge. The thing that pissed me off most about this scene is there are horns going off. Like there are car horns going off when like none of the traffic is moving. You know what I mean? Like it's not like some lanes are free. Like no traffic is moving and people are honking their horns as if they don't know what's happening. Like I don't know if you've ever driven a car, but that's not how things are supposed to go. That's how you get shot. So, uh,
Yeah.
Bob looks absolutely miserable. My dog needs to get out of this life for real, dog. I'm rooting for him. He's bigger than the car. Like it's visibly uncomfortable. Like his arm is involuntarily out the window because he can't fit in the car. Um, he gets out. He gets home. He gets out the car. He trips on a skateboard. I assume like Dash is, which why would he need a skateboard? I guess kind of humanizes him a bit, like I said. And as he catches himself, he dents the top of the car, slams the car window, breaks the window, gets even more upset, lifts the car above his head, and this little boy who I'll just refer to as Billy because we see him a few more times. He has his gum. He pops the gum because he's absolutely amazed. He sets the car down, and I don't know. I think I'm just like on a fit at this point. I don't know why this made me laugh so much as he's walking away from this kid. Like he like swings his arms like that casual, like nothing to see here. Like snaps, like claps his hands, like. That made me laugh a lot. It was like this kid just saw you lift a car over your head. You can't brush that off.
I
Um,
love that like eye contact break because like
I
sometimes you just catch a kid staring at you and then you have that moment where it's like, well, this is weird.
just make that stupid face where you put your lips together, like,
Oh my God.
how you doing there, bud? Uh,
That like I don't want to talk to you, but I'm not mean.
you know that video of the dude, like this meme was like, I don't know if this was real or not, but it was like they're on a show and this woman had a baby, and the baby is just like looking at this guy because it's a baby. He doesn't even know it's alive yet, and the guy who's clearly an adult's like, yo, what's this kid looking at, bro?
Yeah.
Look at his face. He got a
He's like,
dumb little face. Like he stands up. He's like, "Yo, get your boy, dog."
oh my God, I quote that often, but instead of like get your boy, I just say get your dog.
Yo, get
But
your dog, man.
and am always referring to people when I say that.
I love that. That's how I would have reacted to Billy. Like, yo, what you looking at? Use your face. You got a dumb little face. Uh, but now we love Billy. Billy's the goat. Um, the Pars are at dinner, and Bob is distracted, like reading newspapers and shit. 'Cause it's the 50s again. That's all he had to do. Helen is feeding Jack, making crazy faces. Jack becomes important much later, but he's the baby of the group. He's like the last family member we meet. Bob tries to help Dash cut his steak because he's like biting into it like a fucking dog. Um, this is a child. You teach your kid how to eat properly, table manners. Um, Helen tries to like tell Bob to discipline Dash because he got in trouble at school, but he gets more distracted by the fact that he was so fast the cameras couldn't catch him. So he cuts. Dude, this is crazy. He cuts the knife like through the steak, the plate, and the table. And it sticks there. And he like had like a breakdown. He's like, "Wait, I gotta pay for the table, I gotta pay for the car." And he's like, "The car? What happened to the car?" And he stands up and gives Dash his plate and goes to his study and is like, "All right, yeah, this family. Uh,
Yeah.
I hate all you guys." He comes back. He goes to his room. He reads this newspaper that says Gazer Beam has gone missing. I mentioned Gazer Beam a bit earlier. He's a superhero, kind of like kind of have the same look of like Cyclops from X-Men. Um, but he's gone missing because of the anti-superhero movement. He took the role of like a superhero, like advocate. Um, so he's gone missing, which is they were friends. He went to his wedding, so that kind of like a perfect setup for what we see later. Um, the kids are fighting at the table because Dash says his little sister is hungry for another man.
Yeah, that was
uh,
so odd.
yeah. What are you hungry for? It's left overnight. You want meatloaf, vegetables? Tony Ridinger. What? And then he goes, I bet she'd eat it if we were having Tony loaf.
Oh my god.
What? What does that mean? Okay. She gets really upset. But I do love the sibling dynamic here a lot. Like, it's not like over the top. The only thing that makes it over the top is that they're supers. You know what I mean? So Violet's like, "Shut up, you little insect," and like points a butter knife at him. He starts running around the table, to like annoy her, and she puts a force field in front of his face, which should have killed a normal person. Like, at the speed in which he was going to hit that ball was crazy. Um, Helen tells them to sit down and like wraps their hands up. They end up fighting under the table. Jack Jack is marking out crazy. He loves this stuff. Jack Jack is going crazy, bro. She calls for Bob to help. Like it's like she knows he's disassociating, so she
Hmm.
says, and I quote, "Bob, it's time to engage." Like, almost like turning him on. Like, hey, whatever you're doing is important. He
His
comes,
wake
lifts up the
word.
whole table, and that one scene, like, of Bob lifting up the entire table with their kids fighting and Elastigirl's hands wrapped around both her children, is like, that screenshot is like that's like their whole dynamic is funny.
Hmm.
Um,
I
there's a
also was
ring.
I had to psychoanalyze him there as well because like this is the only way that he knows how to handle problems.
With brute
That's
strength.
how he fixes. Yeah, like everything is always just him picking something up or just being strong and nothing else.
It's like, come on, bro, you got kids now, bro. You got to change up your methods. Um, there's a doorbell. There's a doorbell. Wow, am I having a stroke right now? The doorbell rings, and the family straightens up because they don't know who it is. Um, and it's Samuel L. Jackson.
That's
no,
like the best casting decision ever.
it is absolutely incredible that Samuel, and I forget how good he is at voice roles too. Like, look, going back, even though Frozone isn't in this movie as much as I like him to be, whenever he's on screen, it's always the funniest and it's the best.
Yep.
Um, so Samuel L. Jackson walks in the house. It's Frozone. He walks in the house. Um, and Bob says, "Do you remember what Bob says when Frozone walks in the house?"
No, I don't remember.
Bob says, "Ice of you to drop by."
Oh my god. Okay. Yeah, he's a dad.
Boo! Boo! Bro, who is this guy? Throwing tomatoes, throwing tomatoes.
He's a dad.
Boo!
That's the only thing
Uh,
he can do is pick stuff up and make dad jokes. That's
that's
what he's
the
got.
only thing, bro. I need this movie to fast forward like 30 minutes where you start doing some stuff, bro. What the hell?
I
He says,
liked I like
he's,
the interaction that he has with the kids. Like I feel like every time Frozone is on the screen, he brings it's so like realistic. It
yeah, he's
doesn't
like an
feel
uncle.
like yeah, and all the conversations are like organic. They seem natural. Like they don't seem scripted. Like it just seems like he literally just showed up at his friend's house,
He showed
chilling.
up. Jack Jack is playing, not Jack Jack. Dash is playing with him. And he like spits his water out. And he freezes it, and he's like, "Oh, I like it when it shatters," implying that he visits often, like they play often. It's real, like a brother relationship. Is really cool.
Yeah.
Um, so they run out, and he goes, "It's bowling night," which bowling is code for we're gonna go sit in a dark alley and wait for crimes to happen. Um, and Helen's like, "Say hello to Honey for me, Lucius." Which I'm gonna come back to that line in about 30 minutes because okay, it's crazy. But they go and to listen to a police scanner to find out like some small crimes. They're like listening to it. Frozone's legit like, "Hey, I'm trying to leave this behind, but like, you're my friend. I know this means a lot to you. So we're gonna keep doing this."
I have
Uh,
a whole sidebar for the police scanner because I do this thing sometimes and I try not to do it all the time because I don't know. Somebody told me it was like an illness for people. But you know when like you see numbers and you like try to make them relate to each other? I don't know why, but so like on the police scanner it came back and it was like, "Oh, it's a 2356." I immediately was like, "Okay, yeah, 2 plus 3 is 5 and 2 times 3 is 6. 2356. Got it." I don't know why. I was like I tried to big brain that.
like, I like how you decided to do that instead of looking up what the actual code 2356 is on a police scanner. It's like, hey, we got a murderer instructed here. You're like 2 + 3 is 5.
Yep, got it. It's
I didn't know
memorized.
you're on that side of the spectrum. That's actually really cool. It's kind of cute.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but Mirage, who's a character's name we find out later, but I'll just refer to her as name now. Mirage is this mysterious lady whose name Mirage, um, watching them from across the street. And she's talking to someone. We don't know who yet, but she's talking to someone. And Frozone, this is another cool detail. So later on in the movie, Mr. Incredible ends up being the one that they pursue, but the dialogue here suggests that they were tailing Frozone.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, I see him. He's with the big guy. So they're after Frozone. But when they find out Mr. Incredible's there too, they're like, oh shit, we hit the jackpot. So that's a really cool detail that I did not catch when I was like younger, of course. I love stuff like that in animation, especially. I guess 2356 was like a burning building because these two go save people from a burning building. And another all-timer scene. I love this scene so much. This is probably the hardest I've laughed so far throughout the movie. Like, no matter what, this scene of them with like unconscious civilians over their shoulder arguing and these goofy ass ski masks is like the best. He's like, what did he say? He's like, I can't. He said, ice, you can't run out of ice. I thought you could use the water in the air. There is no water in this air.
That cracked me up. In his tone, it was like the delivery was perfect. Like, there is no water in this air.
There is no water in this air. What's your excuse? You run out of muscle.
The two of them, it was also like, yeah, this is a perfect like friend dynamic. This is so real.
Yo, Craig T. Nelson, who voices Mr. Incredible, and Samuel L. Jackson need to do so many more movies together because this was incredible. He's like, well, we got to get out of here. The building's going to come out on top of us. He's like, I wanted to go bowling. But Mr. Incredible ends up breaking through the wall to like the building next door. And the building collapses just as they escape. So mission successful. They got the civilians out of there. But they end up in a jewelry store. And they're wearing robber masks. And the police show up quicker than they did for a burning building. And
Yeah.
they're like arguing, like the camera pans and you can just see them arguing. And I don't hear what Bob's saying, but Frozone clearly says like, we look like bad guys, incompetent bad guys. And these cops, this must have been a rib. This had to have been a rib. So this is crazy. So they send one trigger happy deputy in. Like there's squads of them out there. They send one cop in. And he has his finger on the trigger, like no gun safety protocol. Frozone, who's black in the 60s, realizes that there's a water fountain next to him. He reaches constantly. The officer tells him to freeze, which is ironic for what's about to happen. He tells him to freeze. He keeps drinking. He lets him drink the water, which is actually insane. He lets him drink the water.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm just getting a drink. And he's like, all right, you've had your drink. And he's like, I know. Freeze, and like shoots back. And this is what made me laugh at the whole scene, because I always thought this was a cool scene. And you can actually see that he fired the bullet, like because the bullet freezes too. He shot him.
You can hear it.
Yeah, like you hear it, but like the scene cuts to the outside. So that's the reason the cops run in. And the cops run in and they shout, I cannot make this up. They burst in the door and they yell, police officers.
Oh my god. I did not notice that.
They burst through this door and they yell, police officers! Like, what?
That's that literal humor. Like, it's so funny.
That had me holding my stomach. Okay. Bob gets home. He eats a piece of cake, like an entire piece. I've never seen, this is crazy. This would never happen in my household. He opens up the cake thing and grabs the entire piece with his hand, no plate, no napkin, and just starts chewing it down away the halls, crazy style. That's stuff you wish you could do as a kid, man. Helen's like waiting, like something out of a scary movie, turns the light on. Question him where you been. we were just working out. She notices a little piece of rubble on his sweater, which is like gonna be important later because I actually didn't notice that until I would like this rewatch. The smallest piece, it could have been, oh, I walked near some construction, we were outside. She's like, no, this is rubble from debris from a destroyed building.
Hmm.
And like she just knows that, which was, not like out of the realm of possibility, but it's crazy that she picked that up. So they start arguing about petty things. Well, not petty things, just like family things, like how he needs to be more about the family than trying to relive glory days, and how he tries to like deflect, like, well, you're not being fair either. You should let Dash try out for sports, which is next to impossible because it would not be fair, which is a valid thing. But I mean, you still should kind of have that open for your kids, and both their arguments are valid. She gets a crazy neck stretch here. She says, "This is not about you." She also says, "I don't think so," again in this argument. Like, I don't think so. Like, this is like the third time she said it so far in this movie. And then they can hear the kids come out. Like, you hear Dash run by, which is a cool detail, like that. So they're like hiding. They're like, "Kids, come out. Me and your mother are a team. We're gonna work this out. We love each other, and we love you guys, and everything's gonna be fine." Which is not true. It was actually not true. Um,
Yeah. I
um,
remember that argument. I was like, I kept trying to consider like both sides. I was like, yeah, I understand what he's saying, but it's like she's automatically putting their like, I guess not their status, but they already had to like move around so many times because Bob like exposed that they were supers.
yeah.
So she's like at especially I'm thinking like no, she's at home. There's a baby. The kids are like, Dash is having a good time antagonizing his teacher. Like there's
Like
a
he's not
big
playing the
risk.
role of a father. Yeah.
Yeah, he wants to be Mr. Incredible, period. And he wants his kids to be supers and just out and about.
Yeah,
Which
he
is
wants him to
like
like take pride
cool.
in that, and she wants him to take pride in actually enforcing like good parenthood. They both make very good points here, but this was a bad time for him to bring that up in an argument about you sneaking out and possibly getting people killed, or even yourself, or
Deflection.
anything bad could happen. Um, really good points. Scene cuts. We're back at Mr. Incredible's job. He gets called into Mr. Huff's office, and I am so glad this is the last segment I'll be talking about this dude. This is the weirdest dude ever. I mean, I don't use that word lightly. I actually hate that word, but this dude, he's either weird or autistic because this dude has 4 wall-mounted clocks perfectly parallel to one another, all showing different times. And which, okay. He has pins perfectly aligned. Like, I remember that scene so vividly of him like straightening out a pin, which probably is the reason I have OCD. If I'm really thinking about it. He has a desk calendar, which I don't see too many of those. It's definitely 1950. Um, and there's like a note on his desk too. Like he keeps tapping the note. Remember that? Like there's like a note on his desk, which is
Mm-mm.
almost like the reason that he brought it in there. I actually have to look this up because it's barely out of place. Where like there's clearly words on it, like it's not just gibberish. So I had to look this up, and thanks to Reddit, I know what the note says. Okay, you ready for this?
Okay. Yeah.
Uh, so it says to employee from Gilbert Huff, which I assume this is uh, Mr. Incredible's potential severance papers or something like that, because it
Mm.
says to employee from him. Or maybe it's to him. Like I said, this is like interpreted. So a lot of it's kind of unintelligible because it was like not meant to be seen. But it basically says, due to financial cutbacks, you will now be expected to self-expense all office supplies, including but not limited to pencils, erasers, pens, paper, stationaries, folders, staples, paper clips, Brad's photocopies. All parking will now be metered by the hour.
Oh my
Electricity
god.
consumption and all telephone charges will be deducted from your paycheck. The board of directors at InsureCare wishes to thank you for your selfless sacrifice, which is a crazy way to phrase that, through this
Hmm.
time of financial uncertainty. It is
So
because of
accurate.
you the employee that InsureCare has recorded its highest profit in years. Remember, a successful company makes for a successful man. You save it another penny that goes into, man, it was kind of unintelligible. But this is a crazy. Can you imagine showing up to work and you got a note that says, "Hey, that parking lot that you use every day will now be taken out of your paycheck. Every time you charge your phone, turn on a light, your paycheck. Pencils will no longer." This is like notes you get from like a school where they're like, make sure you have like a
Mm-hmm.
syllabus, make sure you have all your pens, papers. Like, yeah, of course, sometimes schools don't get that, but this is a company, an insurance company. What do you think about that? This is actually, I think this is like, I didn't actually read the note. Like, I wanted to like read it for the first time with you, which is why I sounded so amazed at half the stuff I was reading. That's crazy.
Yeah, I think the way that they ended it was so accurate though, because it's very common for companies to be like, "Yeah, you're gonna be slighted right now," and I just want to say like, thank you for letting us do that to you. We do appreciate the fact that you're not gonna leave, even
For your
though you're,
sacrifice.
yeah, like even though you would be better off on unemployment, we appreciate you still working for us for pennies. Thank you. Love you.
Thank you,
We're a
love you.
family.
Uh, get fucked. It's like a middle finger emoji printed out on the paper.
As if you're
Um,
supposed to, like, that, and just them emphasizing that's because of their financial hardships. Like, okay, and
your financial hardships. All we do is scam people out of their money all day. How are you broke? How
in
are you
insurance,
broke?
there's no way.
um, he also says, "I'm not happy, Bob." Like in that stupid ass voice. "I'm not happy, Bob. Not happy." And Bob is just so uninterested. I think at some point he actually grabs him by the face. Like Mr. Huff
He,
grabs Mr. Incredible by the jaw and tells him to pay attention. But we'll get to that.
yeah, you can like
At this
watch
point,
him build up more and more and more.
like the tension, yeah, is crazy, dude. Like if my boss puts his hand on me like that, bro, I'm like, you might as well give me a severance paper, dog. What are we doing here?
You might as well call the cops because I'm releasing all my suppressed anger. Like
Oh,
that was
absolutely.
all I needed.
The entire office about to hear me. I'm about to get on the intercom. I'm gonna cry. I'm gonna go cry in the bathroom afterwards. But, uh, at
I'm
this
gonna cry.
point,
It's crazy.
I'm gonna cry. First of all, at this point, I care enough to look into who voices Mr. Huff because his voice sounds annoyingly familiar, but kind of endearing. And I found out that it's Wallace Shawn who voices Rex in Toy Story,
Oh wow.
which made me very happy because now you can hear it. Um,
Yeah.
Wallace is also pretty great. I love when I can hear voice actors in a show or a movie, and I'm like, oh, I know exactly who that is. But that one was escaping me when I found out it was Rex. I was like, that was really cool. Bob sees someone get mugged, and Mr. Huff doesn't want him to help. Like he's like, I'll be back. I'm just gonna go handle this guy, and he
Yeah.
threatens to fire him. And Bob lets go of the door handle, and the door handle's busted, like it's broken, because he's so mad. Bob looks out the window. Mugger got away. Bob goes, he got away. And Mr. Huff goes, good thing, too.
Oh my God. Yeah.
And Rachel, you want to tell these people what Mr. Incredible did next?
He grabbed that man. He picked him up by his neck, I believe,
He goozled
and
him.
he threw him. I don't know, like throwing isn't the right word. He like forced him through several walls in the office. His whole and you can see like the outline of his body shape. It looked like at least like 4 or 5 rooms over.
I could have sworn 4 or 5. I could have sworn it was like 7 or 8. Like
Probably.
several layers of drywall. If it wasn't drywall, and it was like actual
Concrete.
good material, like there's no way. And like the other coworkers like slowly look back at Bob, and he just goes, "Uh-oh." Like you almost killed a man. Like, "Uh-oh." I'm
Yeah,
gonna go
his
cry. I'm
reaction
gonna
was
cry
so
now.
like It was not. I was like, oh, I would expect him to be like way more like panicked than that.
Like, like we see Rick Dicker, which is the greatest name of all time. He's clearly fired. We see him in like a full body cast, like throughout a room, which Rick Dicker leaves. Rick, obviously, the agent that kind of works alongside the supers, he's been helping the family move around whenever they get exposed. And it's revealed in Jack Attack and the second movie that he has the ability to wipe the memories of people that know.
Yeah,
Which
it
I
kind
can.
of hinted towards that. Like it felt like very Men in Black at the end, where he's like, "I'm like, this is the last time." It's like,
Yeah,
oh,
like
he's
just forget all about that. Like it felt like, hey, yeah, just maybe one last time we can move you around. And he's like, no, everyone just got settled in, which was, I don't know if that was the right choice or not, but probably was, considering the second movie, which that was probably our first reference, and we'll keep it like that. But he's clearly fired. Bob gets home, and we see Billy again. Mr. Incredible very annoyingly says, "What are you waiting for?" And Billy says, yeah, what does Billy say, Rachel?
I don't remember.
Billy says, I don't know, something amazing, I guess. And he says, me too, kid. And it was very sad. Bob gets home. He dumps out all this stuff, like all his work stuff, like papers, files, all this stuff. And then he hears a thud in the trash can, which was really cool. Like, another cool detail I love, because he was just like, fucking get all this shit out of this bag. And then he's like, doof. And he's like, the fuck? There's nothing solid in my briefcase. And he goes in there and he pulls out a first generation iPad. uh, equipped with face recognition in the 1960s. He gets a message from Mirage that starts like scanning his entire room. There's a fun detail here where she says she's only going to say this once, but there's like a little delay where Mr. Incredible realizes what she said and like frantically reaches for like a pen and paper, which I know we've all done. Like, oh, here's my number, and you're like, kind of, where I know I have paper. Whenever you need the paper, it's never around. So he like grabs like, and the first pen he grabs doesn't work, so he has to grab another
Yeah.
one. So cool. I love stuff like that. Mirage is basically hyping him up, saying that like, you're still Mr. Incredible, you can still do great things. Yeah. How'd you feel about this
Huge
scene,
ego
Rach?
boost. I love the pin thing because it's like that is so accurate. You could have 50 pins, and the one that you pick up to write with is not going to work.
It's dry.
You're gonna have to go with like maybe the second or third one. But yeah, his the angst and the frustration. I love the way that they just kind of put all of that together, and you could just like she was boosting his ego like hell. Like, oh yeah, this is gonna be so great for you. Which when I was listening to the pitch, I was kind of like, that's what you're about to bust over that.
That's all he needed to hear. That's like
To
what
protect machinery is what it ended with. It was like, oh.
His wife's not telling him that. This
So
other woman
cool.
is, though. Take notes. So he offers him the job, and he's like, "Oh man, that sounds really cool." And the iPad explodes. And I like this detail too, where like you can hear like Dash cheering, but Helen's like yelling. Like Helen's like Bob, and Dad's like whoa, raining in here, let's go, rain in the house. It cut to a scene. Bob is blow drying books. Blow drying books. I'm having another stroke. Because they just tell. I've never had the sprinkler systems go off in my house. Have you, Rachel?
No, I don't have a sprinkler system in my house.
That is the most. Well, this is the most 1960s thing ever. So Bob tells Helen that he is gonna. So Helen doesn't know he got fired. He didn't tell her that.
Yeah.
So he just says he's going on a business trip, and she believes him, as any good woman would. And she's like, "I'm going to take up the job." And so they fly Bob out, and they debrief him about this Omni droid. a robot that adapts to whatever you throw at it, which must have been insane for the time, and also kind of scary. Um, so Mirage like debriefs him, tells him like this is what you got to do. Don't destroy it completely. We kind of need it, but yeah, just it's been running amok, and we need it kind of to be apprehended. And so they try to fit Bob through this pod, and he can't fit in because he's fat. You see,
Yeah. I took
uh,
that as that like, oh, it's another like he couldn't fit in his car, which means like the lifestyle that he was living in wasn't going to work for him. And the same thing over there is like, oh, this new space that you're in and you're trying to like have, I guess, fun in isn't for you. You don't fit in.
that's not a bad take at all. Because this guy presses it like 6 times, and then he like turns the knob, which I guess is fat guy setting, and like holds it like he had like that like good 10 seconds, like just belly hitting the machine. It's crazy. Um, Bob, he gets on the island and he fights the Omni Droid. In an incredible feat of animation, this fucking fight is awesome, Rachel. This entire segment of him fighting the Omni Droid was so good. Like, it's actually insane. Like especially when they went down to the lava part of it. Like,
Oh yeah.
it was absolutely incredible. There's a scene here where Bob tries to jump over the Omni Droid, but it predicts the best spot to hit him and then does it. And I'm like, ooh, that's crazy. Um, even though I know Mr. Incredible doesn't lose, obviously, it's still like I'm still like on edge, which I guess is
Yeah.
it's movie's doing a great job at that. I also saw a theory that the Omnidroid's headlight is blue, which I think is an indication that it was meant to be for Frozone.
Hmm.
Because when they put it in lava, when he throws it in the lava, it doesn't get destroyed. Because I assume because it's Frozone, it's meant because it was for Frozone, it's meant to stand very high temperatures.
Hmm.
Um, so that's just my little theory. Um,
Yeah, that
but
makes
Mr.
sense.
Incredible, what's up?
I was saying that makes sense because initially that's who they were planning for.
Yeah, so that may well be a fact as well as a theory. He refers to his back again as a bad back. And the Omni Droid unintentionally cracks it for him, trying to rip him in half. um, so,
That's
uh, so,
good.
so you hear his back crack, and he's like, "Well, that's all he needed," and he just goes in, like he lets it destroy itself, like he somehow, like he gets inside of it, and lets it just kind of penetrate itself from the inside out. Very, very smart play. Bob walks away alive. Things destroyed. He was being spied on the whole time by Mirage and this mystery benefactor who, I guess, spoiler alert, is Syndrome. But Syndrome is also someone else that we'll talk about in a little bit. Um, Bob and Mirage have dinner to discuss working further. And he asks a very good question here, Rachel. He asks a very good question. He says, "Why are we in a volcano?" What kind of Austin Powers bullshit is this, right?
I
Um,
honestly didn't realize it until later that they were in the volcano. I hate to admit.
they were
I
in the
was,
volcano. Which I guess makes sense because there's like the wall of lava that's behind
hmm
them,
I thought that
which
was
is
just like
like a
some
design,
like,
yeah. Like
yeah.
I was like, how'd they do that? How'd they get that in? Like, bro, who's your lava guy? Um, uh, so so he got the job making that good bread. Cue the montage of Bob loving his family, which is probably the best 3 minutes ever. So he like playing with the kids. He like kisses Violet on the nose. He like plays catch with Dash. He's feeding Jack. He's playing with Dash some more. He smacks his wife on the ass. um, he is absolutely crushing it. He's like working out again too. He like benches an entire freight train, which holy crap! He buys his wife a car. He buys himself a car. He is slimming down, gaining more muscle after all. Like this is incredible. Like, and his wife
The
just can't get
shades.
enough of him. Like he is. Like every time he tries to leave, he gets pulled back in the house, and they ain't kissing Rachel. They are not they are not kissing. I don't know the way she was getting pulled back in there. Um,
La 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 la. Can't hear you. Mm-mm. Um, I hated that. Actually, I hated that montage so much. I really did. It was like one
which
of again. I was psychoanalyzing him, so it was like you had to have your ego stroked for you to happily be a father and a husband. Hate that for you. Fix yourself.
He's gonna get fixed. I can't wait to talk about the downfall. Because it does a good job at that. Like, oh, everything's going great. Got this new job. He realizes he has a tear in his suit. So he goes to see Edna, who makes all the superhero suits. And this is what I've been waiting on. I love Edna so much.
Yeah.
Just on a simple, he just showed up good.
Oh, I was gonna say she's like one of the best animated characters ever to me. I love her. She's iconic.
Incredible. She's like not on screen as much as other side characters, but just like her presence is still so felt that it's incredible. Like, I'm gonna say that word a lot. He only comes to her for like a simple tear, but Edna misses making super suits, so she's just like she has her famous no capes line, like that no capes.
Oh my god,
like,
yeah,
no capes.
That and the like pretending to be forced like that. Oh, like she's begging to do it, but not asking. Like she's actually making it seem like she's
you better
begging.
ask me now before I change my mind, darling.
Yeah, I love that. Like, oh, stop pulling my arm. Energy.
He's like, oh, but I insist. Like, he's like, I don't need a new suit. I just want to fix it. And he's like, no, I'll give you a better design, darling. And he's like, and then she goes on this, she talks about the no capes thing, and she talks about the superheroes that have been killed by them. Including but not limited to being sucked in a jet turbine.
That took me out.
Into a vortex, okay. And getting caught onto a missile, which once again kind of dark for a child movie. Brad Bird, the director, also voices Edna, which is unbelievable, so good. Love that for him. Love Edna as a character, did a great job. She agrees to fix the suit. He goes, "You're the best of the best." Yeah, I know, darling. I love Edna so much. I love Edna so much. I can't say enough good things about her. So Helen's cleaning the house, as every mother does, and finds a hair on. But there's like before that, there's like a little detail where like she's vacuuming and she like the vacuum makes like that weird noise when it tugs onto something, like, and she's like shit, now I gotta go inside and clean them. Like, I really like that a lot. He sees Bob's suit. Hold on.
What?
I'll say sorry. I had another stroke and I got my events confused. So, first, because there's another scene kind of like this again. So Helen finds a hair on Bob's suit, which implies that he's been close to another woman.
Yes.
And conveniently, the house phone rings, and it's Mirage. And Helen's nosy ass picks up against the better wishes of her husband. And like she only catches the part where she's like, how quick can you get here? Which must have been scary to hear as a wife. So Bob like hurry up and rushes to get out of the house. She's like, yeah, duty calls, you know what I mean? So I love this about Helen. So like instead of like being like over confrontational, she just like enforces the fact that like she loves him. Like, because at this point, I don't know why he thinks he's Mr. Big Shot. Like he had like the fucking shades on, and he's like very nonchalant, like, yeah, honey, out to work, yeah. It's kind of, and she's like, I love you so much, and he's like, I love you too. But it was like not the same. Like she's like, have a good day at work. Like she's like nervous and like hoping that's not the case, but like she knows something's off. Which is way better than just shouting like, hey, you're cheating on me or whatever she was thinking in that moment.
Well, you would never. Well, some people would, but it's like you have to investigate deeply before you make the confrontation.
I guess it is true. You don't want to just like, but another thing about these particular tropes, I don't know about you, but I love tropes like this, where it's like the character, like Bob lies to her, but he's not lying to her about what she thinks is going on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like in her head, it's probably he's cheating, but really he got fired and he's off to do this superhero thing that he knows she wouldn't approve of. So I'm still going to lie to you. So a lie is a lie, but I'm not lying to you about the thing that you think I'm lying to you about. But there's still some trust issue. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Even if
it's
it's
like
like,
he's
even if things are good, even if he's making good money and doing what he loves and spending more time with his family, it's still like there's still like this trust issue here. Uh,
yeah, he's living a double life. Like I think that divide, like that was happening, that they were setting up from the beginning, kind of, I feel like that's where it peaked. He's two very different people, and also the same person. But I feel like, okay, I forgot what we were saying. You're talking about oh, like he was lying to her, and it wasn't about cheating on her, but it feels like you're cheating on like your family or something. Like knowing
yeah,
that somebody has a completely different life, um,
cheating
without
yourself.
you, that you don't know. Yeah, you're like, okay, I would feel cheated. Like emotionally, you couldn't trust anybody with that information. That sucks.
Not even the one that's for with you for better or for worse. Which our boy needs to learn, I guess. Um,
A lot. A lot
a
of growing
lot,
to do.
a lot. So Bob is on this plane. He's being flown out again, and this plane, Rachel, this plane turns into a submarine, um, and it goes into like an underwater hangar that dries out all the water, which is so visually stimulating. All of it,
Hmm.
like
And
everything
audibly.
about these,
The sound for that was also really cool for me.
the sound, the musical stuff behind it, like everything was so perfect. Um, so this is the scene I thought I'd mix it up with. We cut back to Helen. Uh, she recognizes Edna's patchwork, which again, I refer back to the rubble from earlier. Like she not only sees that his suit has a stitch, but she knows it's from Edna. Which she says earlier, Bob would only trust one person to stitch it up, but it also
Yeah.
implies that he's been doing superhero work, which I assume she's just over that at that point, because of course he is. Um, but she calls her, and Edna is Edna's the real star of this movie. Like she is so goddamn funny. Like she picks up, and Helen's like, "Hey, is this still the line for Edna?" And she's like, "Who is this?" And she's like, "It's Helen." He's like, "Helen, I don't know Helen." She's like, "You know,
Yeah.
Elastigirl, darling." It's been so nice to have her. Like,
Yeah.
like I went to
I
your wedding. I don't know your first name.
I feel like I grew up with family friends that remind me of Edna so much. Like I used to have the lady who babysat me.
You babysit.
She like her voicemail thing would always be like, you know what to do and you know when to do it. And it just kind of feels like that same energy, that same attitude. She would be like, she would not know who's at her door. She's not answering the door, but if she peeps me, it's like, oh hey, wide
Like you,
open.
the type of person you could tell, "Hey, I'll be at your house in 10 minutes." So you knock on the door, like, "Who is it?"
Yeah, they're like, and they're pissed.
I told you I was coming. You know who it is. Uh, so we cut back to Bob. He gets attacked. Not only did he get attacked, he gets violated. Like gets dragged out of his room by another Omni droid. We hear a voice because it's being controlled this time. It's bigger. It's badder. It's revealed to be Syndrome. And this time the Omnidroid's light is red, which I theorize is for Mr. Incredible. Um,
Hmm.
and they fight. He pantomimes killing him because these blades get so close to his neck. Like, oh my god. Um, Literally a millimeter away from just no more movie. Or it would have been a very different movie. Um,
To credits.
uh, credit, hit credit. What I've done. Like, Syndrome is revealed to be Buddy Incrediboy from the beginning, who took Mr. Incredible's words extremely personally. He said they tore him apart, made him the person he is. He literally made Syndrome. And this is actually like peak version of him. Like I hated him as Buddy, but like I always thought Syndrome was such a compelling villain, and it gets even bigger than that the longer the more we talk about it. He's so good. This character alone is so like a lot of villain arcs are like that, where they're like, oh, I was made from this from someone I looked up to, but it was like an early instance of something like this, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah, that's what I
Uh,
meant earlier. Like he should have, the bomb would have hurt less. That interaction made an entire different person. It created somebody,
it created in
a syndrome.
mani- it created a syndrome. He said, okay, he says, I started building and selling weapons so that to other countries so that I can feel respected and that they can get respect.
Yeah.
And I can only assume this is a result of parents not beating their kids
Wait.
because holy fuck,
Wait.
like I have never been in a position where I wanted to sell catastrophic level war ready weapons to other countries in search of respect.
I,
And I don't think Syndrome was disciplined enough as a child.
I think it's the
Um,
other way around. Like, he wasn't respected ever. Like, you have to, if he wasn't being disciplined, which could also just be like a neglect thing, but like, I would assume that he was being disciplined and that he wasn't being respected by his parents, or he never had respect from anybody. I don't even know if did he have parents? And now I'm like curious about his lore, but I feel like it was the opposite. Like, he probably was beat, and that's why he was so dependent or relying on Mr. Incredible to like be
to be that out, yeah.
yeah, and making him feel like like he wanted to be super. He didn't have powers. I feel like honestly, just trying to psychoanalyze that part is like, ooh, actually sounds like he was overly disciplined. He needed to beef up to feel like at least a person or equal. Because that's a lot to have to go through just to feel respected. That's a lot.
That is a
But that
lot.
is the by definition hero syndrome. I love the naming and the name of the characters in this movie it's like my favorite.
Yeah, they work so well. Speaking of names, I mean, there was like this an argument about how did they know to name their kid Dash when he's a speedster? But I think they forget his full name, which is Dashiel. Um, but Dash is kind of just a cool byproduct of that and his powers. Um,
Yeah.
Mr. Incredible escapes into water after being thrown because before this is like he tries to like chuck something at him. I think this is the scene, and he goes, "Oh, you caught me monologuing," which is like a cool comic book reference to villains always telling their plans as they have the hero at their knees when you just like do something. Um,
Yeah.
and he did. He threw him. I mean, he launched him. Um, he's like, I'm no longer your sidekick. I'm your nemesis. Like he like declares that he's like, I'm your nemesis. Like now who's in charge? He's like, because he has Mr. Incredible like on his knees. He's like, I was wrong to treat you that way, and I'm sorry. He's like, oh, now you're sorry because I'm a threat. And I was like, oh, he's not bullshitting, bro. He is not. He's taking no prisoners. This is crazy. Um, so he gets thrown into like he escapes into water, a body of water, and Syndrome throws a bomb into the water, which I like to imagine is a parallel from the beginning, but it could have just been like his tech. It's no big deal if it isn't. He escapes deeper into this body of water, into this cave, and he discovers the remains of Gazer Beam, which scared the shit out of him and me. So, uh, Gazer Beam was referenced several times before, even including in that newspaper I mentioned earlier. Said he had gone missing. Rest in peace, GB. Syndrome thinks he killed Mr. Incredible because he hid behind the remains of Gazer Beam. So I guess his high tech that he spent billions of dollars on couldn't recognize that there was life down there because it tells him that he died. And I kind of like that too because it shows that like he's been waiting for that moment, but just like I'm not here to waste no time because a lot of villains like to play with the hero. Like I'm just gonna keep you like this, and I'm gonna make you watch. And try to be like, if I have the opportunity to, I'm not gonna go down that water. I'm just gonna throw this bomb on there, confirm you're dead. Okay, I'm gonna move on with my life. I killed Mr. Incredible. Uh,
Yeah.
he thought he did, and he didn't he didn't investigate further, and he kind of walked away. Would have been a very different movie. Um, Edna and Helen are walking down like in her house, and they're just having a little funny banter. This is an all-timer scene. It's very small, but I love it so much. Like, she enters the long code on the door, like the hand scan, eye scan code, and she goes Edna mode, and like a gun comes from the ceiling and points at Helen, and she goes and guest, and it goes away. Like, okay. Edna explains that once she started working on Bob's suit, that she got like the worm and just wanted to work on suits for the whole family. So they have like this whole presentation of like, oh, like Dash's suit has no friction. He can run for as long as he can. Violet's suit can go completely invisible with her. Jack's suit is completely indestructible. Helen says that Jack doesn't have any powers, which is a cool little foreshadowing for later. We go on a but before I get there, so she talks about Bob's suit, and Edna accidentally snitches on Bob, and she says several times.
Accidentally?
What happened?
I don't know. I was saying accidentally. It felt intentional.
She
from the like the first phone call, it seemed intentional.
Like, I'm trying to get this. Like, she's like, "Do you know where he is?" And she like emphasis, like, "Do you know where he is?" And she's like kind of like, "Oh man, maybe I don't know where my husband is at this point." We switch back to Bob, who's on a tactical espionage Metal Gear Solid as mission, to get back into the facility to kind of find out more. And he gets on like the moving cart, like on like the roller coaster they have around the island, like that moving cart they have.
Roller coaster.
He gets on one of those, and he like kills the guards, and he like rides back, and he sees that there are 2 guards at the gate. So what Bob does is probably the next moment I belly laughed in this movie. So the cart shows up to the 2 guards, and it's broken, and they're looking down like, the hell happened? And the camera pans up, and the cart is being launched toward them. Like, it looked like the moon was falling on these guys. Like, it was an insane shot. Probably killed both those guys just doing their job, honestly. He eventually reaches the room they had dinner in with the lava wall. And legit, Rachel, I'm telling you right now, this entire scene, like the next 5 minutes, is the reason I wanted this to be the first episode. This scene is like the magnum opus of everything that's so great about animation and good storytelling. So he discovers this giant computer, and he enters the password Kronos that he saw in the cave with Gazer Beam. Mm-hmm. And he's finding out that like Syndrome's been killing supers, right? Like a super's name pops up and it goes terminated, terminated, terminated. And the score builds up in the background, and it is absolutely chilling. Like, and it pans back to Bob's face, like, oh my god. And these aren't just like superheroes, like these are also like Bob's friends.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that adds like another layer on top. And then it switches back and forth between him and Helen, and Helen giving Bob the phone, Edna giving Helen the phone, which she doesn't use quite yet. Switch back to Mr. Incredible. And the Omni Droid. So like it showed like different types of Omni Droids that get upgraded every time they get defeated. It defeats another couple supers until it finally got to Mr. Incredible, who's labeled as terminated because he thought he was. And then he goes to look up Elastigirl, who's unknown because he hadn't found her yet, but types in Frozone and says we do know his location, which confirms the theory earlier, which is now fact, that they were looking, Frozone was going to be next, which was absolutely terrifying. And he looks up what Kronos actually is, which was the plan to fly an Omnidroid to the city and destroy it. And man, that back and forth between the expression on Mr. Incredible's face and him finding out what happened to his friends and everything, it was so good, man. I couldn't even put into like a note. Like, this is probably the longest note I have on this page about how good it was.
Yeah, it was a good buildup of tension for sure. I liked that, like, frantic searching people that you know or that you care about. Like, oh yeah, I would start typing in everybody's name, just like, but I was like, I guess no, they wouldn't know about the kids. They wouldn't know any of that.
No, absolutely not. He didn't know his wife existed. But I would still do it. You're right. I'd be like, shit, do you know him? Do you know her? What about the one that's so? It looked like he got almost every super, which clearly not as told by the second film. Um,
Hey,
but man,
cut that
it
out.
was. You're right. uh, Such a great scene. Um, Agna. So this is another visually stimulating scene. It was not like a good scene for our hero, but Helen. So she equipped their suits with like pinging technology, so they can know their location and like find them in case something happens to them. Um, and Helen pushes the button. Bob's suit starts going off, and it alerts the room. Lights come on. Intruder alert. This is a very visually stimulating scene for me. Like he gets shot with these balls, like these black balls, and they
Mm,
start like inflating as they land on him. And I just always thought, like as a kid, like that scene was just so cool. Like not bullets, not some type of net to catch him, just like this very unnecessary. Like it's gonna slow you down. It's gonna cover your whole body. Like it's gonna
yeah,
immobilize you, and it's gonna make you uncomfortable. And it made me
yeah.
uncomfortable, but it was also like this is a very cool. Like the tech is very weird on that.
I feel like it was interesting because it was like the first time in that film that I had a physical reaction to what was happening, even though I've seen it before. It's just like you can feel how much that would drag you down. Like, I don't know.
Yeah,
I was like, it's like holding your breath when people are swimming in a movie or something. I could not wait for that scene to be over.
yeah. It made me claustrophobic. Um, like even with Bob's like super strength, like you could tell he's like trying to pull some off, but they just get stuck even more, and that made me even more uncomfortable. And I was like, oh my goodness,
It's like
um,
when my cat got stuck on a glue trap.
bro, it's a bit like this. It might have been covered in glue traps. Oh my god. Um, so the last thing he sees before going out is Syndrome and Mirage's feet, which is okay. So Edna finds not Edna, Helen finds out that he's nowhere near a business trip. He's on some island, and she starts crying. She's like, "I'm losing him." It's very, very humanizing.
Yeah.
Um, and
Now
Edna,
it's my fault.
it's all my fault. Like Edna,
Like
like pushes the tissues down like a flaming hole, like the garbage burns. I'm
I
like,
love that. Like a miniature incinerator.
oh man, I need one of those installed on my kitchen island. Um, she says, she says, "What am I gonna do?" And Edna's like, "What are you going to do? You are Elastigirl! My God, pull yourself together!" And starts assaulting her with a newspaper. Uh,
Yeah.
and then she goes, "This is a cool line." She goes, you will remind him that he is Mr. Incredible, and you will remind him who you are." So I think Helen likes to kind of forget that she doesn't just have abilities, that she also can do great things.
Yeah.
Um, All timer scene, I love that. My family loved that scene. That pull yourself together. They quote that to this day. they,
Yeah. It seemed like I was listening to Helen when she started blaming herself. I immediately like anytime at anywhere that a woman starts blaming herself for something that's like that's not your fault, that's my instant reaction. Is like straight up, I'm about to bully you into understanding your worth. Like, no, get yourself together for real.
pull
Stop playing.
yourself together.
Stop crying. Like, no, that's not real.
What we're not gonna do is cry over here.
Mm-mm.
I'm gonna cry in the bathroom because I lost my job, but you're not gonna cry. Uh, Helen starts to
Okay.
pack up to go save Bob. She packs her new. She has their new suits that Helen gave them. The children are being children. They're like annoying her, especially just Dash, especially like, "What's those suits? What's going on, Mom? Where you going?" Stuff like that. He steals his suit, and like gives one to Violet. Um, and Violet's like, what's so different about these?" And Dash's like, "I don't know. Why should try to hide them?" Um, which is very poignant for like a 10-year-old to say. Very insightful. Violet tests it out, realizes it can go invisible with her. Cool little detail because she uses that literally in the next scene. Um, so Helen gets a plane from Snog, who I guess is also a former hero or just maybe a pilot. They don't really dig into Snog too much. I always thought he'd be a much more important character in the
Hmm.
series to come, but they never go back to him. It's another problem I have with another character we see at the end. Um, but she borrows his plane, so Helen's also a pilot, which is cool. Um, she's on the plane and she throws her bag on a seat and realizes that her kids are stowaways on the plane. And I love this scene with like the kids arguing because like going in on what each of them are saying because they're talking over each other. But Dash,
Mm.
being the youngest, is so loud. He's like, it's not my fault. Dash ran away, and I knew I'd get blamed for it. That's not true.
Yeah. He like jumped up out of the seat. That's funny.
You said she would notice. I didn't get in trouble. I they just and he's like, whoa. You left Jack alone, and then like the only thing I got from this is like I think Violet was saying like, you really think I'm that irresponsible to leave Jack alone by himself? Thanks a lot. Like, but you only hear the thanks a lot part, but she took that very personally.
Yeah.
And she called the house, and Kari, I didn't spell her name, but I remember how to say it. Kari picks up. Kari picks up, and I love this character so much. Like, I wish she had way more screen time.
She annoyed me so bad.
Her voice, although being the typical annoying high school character that definitely got bullied in other movies, it was so cool because she was definitely like, you don't have to worry about a single thing, Mrs. Farr. I know exactly what I'm doing. Babies are my like everything she said, just like she's like, Corey. She said the same thing I would say. She's like, Corey, I really don't feel comfortable with this. And it's like, it's just like the manual says, Mozart make babies smart. Half the time I wish my parents played Mozart when I was a child, because half the time I don't even know what anyone's talking about. And I'm like, what is going on right now?
Oh my god. Yeah. The Mozart killed me. I was like, oh my god, no.
So Syndrome has Mr. Incredible trapped in what I can only imagine is like this torture device. He's being held captive either way. He questions him, who did he contact? Which again, as a child, I kind of overlooked. I'm like, he didn't have time to contact anyone, but he's referring to when his suit got pinged. Like, he's like, who did you contact? And he's like, I didn't send. He's like, you sent out a signal, and now a plane is on the way to this island right now. Who did you contact? And he's like, well, if you don't know them, then I guess you wouldn't mind if I sent them a little gift. And then he starts playing the audio recording of like Helen. He's like, oh, that's Helen. He's like, oh, so you do know them? And he's like, he sends attack. He sends missiles at this plane. And parents, beat your children. Because this is absolutely egregious. And to her credit, Helen is flying the fuck out of this plane, Rachel.
Oh yeah, like avoiding all of those missiles. I got stuck on you saying beat your kids. Spanking is abuse. I don't condone that message.
Spanking. Okay, just for complete transparency, I also agree that spanking is abuse. I'm just making it a point because Syndrome annoys me so much when he does villainous shit like this.
I'm on the counter. I'm convinced that he was beat. That's why he's like that.
That's why he does this, yeah. So I'm just going to start saying parents don't beat your kids from now on because they end up doing stuff like this. So, Rachel, this is a commercial plane. You know what I mean? Like, this is not a jet. This is not a fighter plane. This is not even a luxury plane. This is a commercial airline plane that you see at like Delta. She is flying Spirit right now. And she is avoiding guided missiles, Rachel. These missiles are following her. She isn't just dodging them, she's evading them. Like, she's going crazy.
And the flips and the loops.
The loops, the barrel rolls. She tells the kids to strap in. She even gets on the radio and tells that, hey, there are children aboard, which scares Bob and Mirage. Bob like has the great reaction here, just like screams no, like clearly like, oh no, the kids are with her. Oh my God. Mirage even looks at Syndrome a bit differently too after not calling them off because there's kids on board. Helen tells Violet to put a force field around the plane. But she can't do that, not because she can't, but because she's very
performance
insecure.
Anxiety.
Yeah. Like her ability, she doesn't know the extent of her abilities yet, and she's not trying to know because she's been told their whole life to not use their powers. Yeah.
That's what I remember thinking, like, wait, what do you expect her to do? She hasn't been able to use her powers like that.
Yeah. The best thing she does is just hide outside of school away from Tony Ridinger. So she doesn't know how to put force field. Like, not like that. I mean, like, I mean, up to that point, I haven't seen her like even hold a force field. You know what I mean? Like, she just like
Yeah.
pops one up, like it's just like for like a few seconds. So, but that changes in a few scenes. So the missiles hit the plane, it explodes. She protects them, and then she uses her body as a parachute, which isn't the first time she does that. It's so good. And
Yeah.
they land in the most realistic water I've ever seen in a 2004 animated movie.
It
Um,
was good. The water
this
was good. I
this
love good
water was
water.
crystal clear. uh, Incredible scene, incredible feat of animation for 2004, 20 years ago. It's crazy. I'm gonna keep bringing that up. Uh, I'm gonna say this. Let me get your thoughts. Bob thinks his family just died. I'm not laughing at that, but like he had like this scene where like his head is just hanging so low, like
Hmm.
oh my god. Syndrome's like laughing. He's like, oh man, like there's a little another detail like Mirage just like sounds disgusted at him, like oh the missile target confirmed hit, like all that stuff. Um, Mr. Incredible then grabs Mirage like and threatens to crush her like a toothpick. And
Yeah.
Syndrome says, "Hey, do your thing, big dog."
He's like, that's a little dark. That's a little
That's a little
dark for you.
dark.
That's what stuck out. I was like, oh, it is actually. It's a little dark for everybody for a kids
It's al-
movie.
it's also like the bluff too. Like it's like how he kept me like release me now or what? I'll crush her. Huh? So it's a little dark for your taste. Go ahead.
For
It'll be
sure.
easy. It'll be easy. Like breaking a toothpick. Show me. And they like look at each other and he drops her and he's like, I knew you couldn't do it even when you have nothing to lose. It's crazy. Mirage gives him a dirty look because why would you do that? Why would you do that?
Yeah, he was very confident he wasn't going to do that. He did call him a punk. Oh my god.
But I guess you can say if he did do it, uh, if he did do it, this movie would be a very different rating. Um, It'd be a very different movie if he did that. Helen and the kids make a boat. But before I love how Helen's still being a mom. You know,
Hmm.
like I love those moments where like they're in the middle of the ocean and Dash and Bella are freaking out. You know, we're dead, and she's like, "Stop it, we're not gonna die. Now get a grip, or I'm gonna ground you." And I'm like, "What are we talking? Like we're in the middle of the ocean,
Him
mom. Like,
screaming, "We're
uh,
dead." He's like, "We're alive, but we're dead."
we're alive, but we're dead." That's a great line. Um, Helen makes a boat with her body. Violet sits in the boat, and Dash uses his feet to kick towards the island, which she
His
uses the
motor.
stream. She uses the stream from the slipstream from the missiles that said they.
Hmm.
She said those were land-based missiles, which very great observational awareness here, so they know exactly which way to go. Um, if you want to go towards the guys that tried to kill us, yeah, because it means we'll find land. Let's do it. Um,
Yeah.
Dash kicking this water is I want to say foreshadowing for what's to come, and I cannot wait to talk about that. Um, um, yeah, great scene. Literal life or death situation, uh, still instilling in her kids great values and stuff. We get a little scene between Mirage and Syndrome where she says, "Next time you gamble, bet your own life," which is a
Hmm.
great line. It's a great
Yeah.
line. Uh, she's like, I knew it wouldn't happen to you, baby. And I'm like, first of all, the fact that you even got this woman is crazy. And then trying to kill her the next is insane. Because you look pretty dusty to me. I'm not even gonna lie. Helen infiltrates the facility in what is an all-timer scene that still stood the test of time. So, Helen
Wait.
doesn't have
Pause.
brute. Helen doesn't
Pause.
have
Pause.
brute
Pause. Pause.
strength.
Pause. 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 Hold on. Sorry. Um, Before Helen goes, I gotta give I gotta give my little notes. I took
Absolutely.
notes on Violet because when Helen left them in the cage, Violet, like, she gave her a pep talk, and you could see like she was building up her confidence because of what happened on the plane. And I noticed like Violet throughout the first half of the movie, her hair is always covering her face because she's like anxious and she's low self esteem, whatever. And as her confidence builds, her hair like stops covering her face, like she starts showing her face. I thought that was really cute.
That is a very astute observation because I didn't even catch that. again until Mr. Incredible. He actually says it towards the end of the film. He's like,
Hmm.
"Hey, you wearing your hair back?" Like he says that to her.
Yeah, Helen pushes her hair back behind her ear the first time I have, so I was like, oh, like her mom's building her confidence. That's cute.
Which I think, which I skipped over that scene. I'm glad you talked about it. Want to get your voice in here as much as possible. But I love that scene because it it also how much generational trauma plagues like people of my color, and just I know what I had to go through and stuff to get that level of just like reassurance and
Hmm.
understanding, because Violet was clearly distraught about it. Like, Mom, I'm sorry, I wasn't able to do this, and da, da, da. And she straight up says, "Honey, I should have never even put that much pressure on you." You know,
Yeah.
and like you said, just building her confidence up, and I just love like not even like a don't let it happen again, just like a no, it was totally understandable. That was my fault. I was like, oh my god, what a healthy family dynamic here.
Yeah, and then
This is
she doesn't like baby her over it though. Like after she like builds her up, she's like, "You'll know what to do next time. Like you're gonna do
you're
it."
right. That is very. She's like, you know what to do because like these people aren't like the bad guys on TV. They
Hmm.
want to kill you. They want, like you gotta look after yourself.
But yeah, Helen was like extremely like emotionally intelligent from the jump. Like her first opening, she's just showing like she's very much aware.
Yeah, it was really really good. Um, so Helen infiltrates the facility and wants to be like a great scene. She doesn't have brute strength like Bob, so she just enters through. Um, and then there's a classic part where she acknowledges her ass in the mirror,
Yeah.
like just her body, and I go, "Oh my god!" I said, "Oh my good God, Bruce Almighty, this woman is." Bob, why are you doing these things, bro? Like, why you be lying about stuff, bro? I'll tell you what, ain't no way he's cheating, dog. There is no way he's cheating. Um, she tries to stretch and get a guard's key after getting her leg trapped in the door, which causes her body to get trapped in the door. So now, like, three separate parts of her body are trapped between three different sections of this facility. Uh, so her leg uh, is sticking to the door, and the guards are very confused. Her body knocks two guards out, and there's a scene where the guy opens the elevator, and they go, "Hey!" and she stretches her fist through the elevator, and she like feels her hand around until she feels the guy's face, and then punches him.
Yeah.
Uh, well, that was a cool scene. Um, the rocket that Syndrome's building takes off, and it leads to the cave. So the cave that Dash and Violet are in gets like engulfed in flames, so they have to leave. Um,
Hmm.
and they wake up like stranded in the middle of the jungle. And that same bird that they use, like the bird tech that they used to like spy on them, like they ask them like to identify themselves, and the bird starts going off as an alarm. And that Incredibles theme song kicks in, and they're like, "We gotta run." He's like, "Where? Away from here!" And they start taking off. They sing guards after him.
Yeah, I
Uh,
really like that part because I was like, oh, this is another like emphasis on their powers and whatnot because they were left there and she's like, you guys will know what to do, run and hide. Like that's her power and that's his power. I love that.
They just like that, and like Dash, you run as fast as you can. That was like the scene, like in that same cave scene where she's talking to Violet. Like he's like, Dash, if anything happens, I want you to run as fast as you can. He goes, as fast as I can, like very excited,
Yeah.
like you never told me to do that before. I'm so excited. And he did, and we'll talk about it. We're getting closer to there. So Mirage sets Mr. Incredible free, and she's like, we don't have much time, and he goes, no, we don't have time at all, and he Rachel, what does he do?
I don't remember. I feel like
Every time I cue you in, you don't remember.
I really don't.
So Mr. Incredible chokes. He puts
Oh,
his.
I blocked that out. That really made me upset.
It made you upset.
Yeah,
This
cuz like damn.
his family is presumed dead.
But it's like when you needed to do that, you couldn't, and now all of a
And now that
sudden
he's
you're about to just go on a like, huh?
also, I don't know how long he's been in that room, but like he's had a lot of time to think. He's like, bro, I'm killing everyone in this building when I get out of here, bro. Uh,
Yeah.
He goozles her and lifts her off the ground. And Craig T. Nelson, man, is just so good. He goes, how could you bring me alone? What more could you take away from me? Like very aggressive, like very distraught, sad, angry, like all these emotions. Mirage is speaking through faded breath. She's like, family survived, crash. They're here on the island, like about to die, really. Um, he's like, oh, they're alive. He has this revelation. He drops her. He's overcome with joy. He hugs her, and Mirage is enjoying this hug a lot. Just in time for Helen to walk in and see him hugging another woman, and she like stops in his tracks, and Bob's like, Helen, and Mirage goes, hello, you must be Mrs. And then she gets punched in the face. And Bob grabs her arm and she's like, he was helping me to escape. And she's like, no, that's what I was doing. And Mr. Incredible drags her closer, like by her arm. Cool little animation thing there. But while she's being dragged, she's like, let go of me, you lying, unfaithful. And before she gets to finish, like they kiss. And she's like, how could I betray the perfect woman? She's like, oh, you're referring to me now? Like such witty, like such a woman thing to say. I've been told that before. And it's like, bro, we're about, bro, what are we? That's not the time. There's a time. But yeah, so you're referring to me now. Cool little thing. They're like, okay, they find out the kids are on the island running for their life. So they run out to go help them. What do you think about this whole scene?
I felt like because I was rewatching it, I didn't have I don't know what, like I distinctly remember that scene, so it didn't have much of a reaction. I felt like I wanted him to reassure her more than just like a kiss and like, oh, how could I betray you? Like, wait, no. I didn't like that part. But I did like that they were like, they familyed up, they teamed up to go save their kids.
Yeah, about the reassure her more. We definitely get that payoff in a little bit here. But I do agree with that. So Violet and Dash are dealing with these fake ass soldiers in the jungle, and Dash is outrunning one of their flying saucers things, and he, like, as he's running, he ends up landing on one of them. And he starts squaring up with this guy, like he starts boxing this guy. And I'm like a dumbass because when I was a kid, I used to always think that when like Dash knocked his goggles off, that Dash, like, he got like a shocked face, rather. He was like, huh? Like a very confused face. And I always thought that was because when he knocked the goggles off, that like that guy was somebody that we knew, like a character we were familiar with. But no, it was because they're about to crash into the side of a cliff.
Yeah.
And he was looking at the cliff, not the guy, which I felt very stupid about years later. But yeah. So
I was shocked about him getting punched in the face. It's like, damn, I understand, like, you gotta catch his kids or whatever, but it's like, you about to punch a kid? He's tiny, too.
He knocked Dash out, bro. Like, he was perfectly content with it, too. Like, he punched him off, and he started smiling.
Yeah, he's like, yeah, got him.
Like, imagine, like, you get the job, and, like, on the application, it's like, you have to be willing to, like, punch children or, like, attack, like, any means necessary. Absolutely crazy. Like, you just capture them. You're squaring up. This dude's 10 years old. Like, what are we doing? So he gets back on land and he's outrunning two of them now. Rachel. Yes. Rachel. I can't even. I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about this scene. So Dash is running and the camera pans to a saucer to the left of him, and there's a guy to the right of him. And he looks ahead and he sees water and he goes, oh no. And he winces and everything goes silent for a sec. The camera pans back. He looks down and Dash is running on the water. This is the greatest scene in the entire movie. I can't even make this up. It was really good. I've
The
seen this
chuckle,
movie.
the chuckle that he let out when he realized is my favorite. Like it was just like a like I'm walking on water. Like it was good.
The Incredibles theme kicks off again. Now they start firing bullets at this kid. Crazy scene. He leads them into a cave, and when he stops running, I don't know how scientifically accurate this is, but when he stops running in the cave, it takes like a full 2 seconds for the water to recognize he's not running anymore, and then he sinks, like just before those two crash into each other.
Yeah.
Um, Violet is holding her own against another soldier. So she like jumps in water to try to escape, and the soldier's actually smart. He like throws dirt in the water to like track her, and
Hmm.
he's like, "You can't hide from me." Like these are very like South Park ass voice lines here. Like, and he's like, "There you are," and then Dash shows up, starts punching the guy, and a very cute moment. Like while he's punching him, he goes, "Don't touch my sister!" Like again, like that sibling dynamic is so like cute. I like that so much. Um, Dash is about to get blasted by this adult with a gun, and then Violet comes out of the water and makes a full force field for the first time in the whole movie,
Yeah.
protecting her and Dash, which again shows how much more confident she is, or at least in that sometimes it takes that situation to kind of pull that out of you. Like, oh no, my brother's in imminent danger, and I need to protect him. And I didn't even. She even said, "I don't know how I'm doing this." Uh,
Yeah. I love that scene. Just like, how did you do that? I don't know. But she was able to like maintain it.
Throughout the whole rest of the movie, yeah, it's so cool. And Dash is like, "Whatever you're doing, don't stop." And they just start like Sonic the Hedgehog. They started like Sonic the Hedgehog running through this jungle, like force field. You get the force field upgrade. You're like running through trees, running through enemies. They're like no threat. They run into their parents conveniently. Well, I'm not mad at it. They kind of earned this moment. Um,
Yeah.
they start hugging for like, but it doesn't last long because they get jumped by more. So we get a family team up scene here, and the
The
only problem I have with
pose.
the scene is that it didn't last long enough.
The pose cracks me up because it's like, where now I understand like the parents, but Violet and Dash, what? Why are y'all? Hold on, I'm
Y'all,
about to look at the image now because like that really did crack me up. I was like, okay, yeah, that stance, like he was about to. I guess he did just square up with somebody. I don't know
he
about
just started,
Violet.
he just started squaring up. I'm like, y'all just learned how to do this. What are we doing here? First of all, even they pose to the musical cue like right as they were like getting jumped, and like I said, I wish the scene was longer, but we get to see like all their abilities. We can see Helen stretch and take some guys out. Mr. Incredible just straight up. Look at this pose. Look at this pose.
Yeah,
Also, I actually
they were
remember that
ready.
scene differently in my head. I always thought Dash was on the right, and it was like some weird Mandela effect stuff. Um, yeah.
Wait, it's on the. I had to remember it too. I was like, wait,
Violet has like a Violet has like a judo stance, like she's about to do like some martial arts on this. Like,
that's what I'm saying. Like, where did y'all like y'all got? They have like in photography, like y'all got the pockets right. Like this is weird.
oh man, this a lot of money went into this scene. Um, so they start fighting these guys, and Syndrome shows up. Whoa, whoa, whoa! Time out. And he has some of his best dialogue moments here. He notices Elastigirl. He's like, Elastigirl, you married Elastigirl? And he looks at the kids and he goes, and got busy. This is a kids movie.
Honestly, well, I thought I'm trying to remember. I was shocked that he didn't know that he was married to Elastigirl, but I remembered like when he was looking through that system, like they didn't know where she was. I think it's funny how she was able to keep her identity like down. Nobody knew.
well, 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 it was in the console. Well, I mean, like, they never even. I mean, Elastigirl clearly, like, said several times, like she left that life behind.
Yeah.
Unlike Bob, who's practically going out every night trying to recapture those things, and also just being moved a lot, and new identities and being relocated a lot might have helped with that. So even time you think you might have a lead, it's like, oh man, what happened to it? It's like because they
Yeah.
have the government on their side protecting them, which I didn't even think about till you said that. This is why you're here, Rachel. Uh, my backbone over here. Um, so they get taken back to that same torture device that Mr. Incredible was held in, but now it's the entire family. Um, and Syndrome like kind of goes on this whole spiel about how like releasing the Omnidroid on the city and how I'm going to show up and be the new superhero and I'm going to give everyone superpowers. And once everyone's super, no
Hmm.
one will be perfect
Yeah,
in their
that
own
was
mind.
a poke from like the beginning of the film when I think they were in a car or something, and Helen was talking to Dash, and she was like, he said something about being special, and she was like, everyone's special. He's like, that means no one is.
Yeah, it's ties back to it. I remember that. I was trying to remember that earlier when you brung up the car scene, but it's exactly what it was. Um, love the comparisons there. Love the parallels. Um, it doesn't take long for them to escape, but before they do that, Bob is like in his feelings. He's like opening up to him. He's like, you guys are my greatest creation, and I'm sorry I had to go and mess that up. And he's really wearing his heart on his sleeve, and it's very, very cute that now they're doing this. But again, he's only doing that in a position of like vulnerability now.
Trauma
Um,
bonding.
yeah, trauma bonding exactly. Um, but Elastigirl doesn't care because like Violet escapes and she's about to set them free, and Dash is like, "Mom," and Helen's like, "Shh, don't interrupt. I want to hear this." Um, so he does that, and Violet sets them free. Um, now, Rachel, I want you to do this. So the next scene is Frozone,
Oh
and
yeah, yeah, yeah. That
what happens
scene is like
in this scene?
permanently engraved in my mind.
Okay, I
He's
changed my mind. This is the greatest scene in the whole movie.
It is to me. But okay, I won't do an impersonation, but like he sees like right outside his window that there's like what's it the Omnidroid?
The Omnidroid, yeah.
Yeah, like tearing up the city. And then he's just like, whatever he was doing before, it doesn't matter. He immediately starts looking for his super suit. And he's like
Putting
looking through his
Cronus.
drawer. And then he like uses a remote to open up, like, I guess where he would normally, like a secret closet where he would normally have it. And then he's like, honey, where's my super suit? Where's my super
Huh?
suit raised me? Like, where's my super suit applies to every single thing I've ever lost in my life and continues.
Where's
Uh,
my super suit? It is an all-timer scene. Like, and also, remember I said earlier Helen called, like, say hello to Honey?
mhm.
So, his wife's name is Honey. Like, I just thought he was calling her Honey because that's his wife. His wife's name is Honey. So, he says, "Where's my super suit?" She goes, "I put it away." He says, "Where?" She says, "Why do you need to know?" He
My
says,
favorite.
"I need it." He says, "You're not gonna run away from me now. We've been planning this dinner for 2 months." He goes, "The public is in danger." She says, "Our marriage is in danger." And then he goes, "You tell me where my suit is, woman. We are talking about the greater good." And then this is an all-timer line. She goes, "Greater good? I am your wife. I'm the greatest good you are ever gonna get."
I'm the greatest good you are ever gonna get was my like I paused the movie for a minute. Say yeah. Whoever wrote that,
Mm,
they ate
mm.
down. They ate
It was
down.
cooking. It was cooking, bro. Like an all-timer scene. I lied about earlier. That's the greatest scene in the movie. It will forever be ingrained in the collective consciousness of everyone who's ever seen this movie, man. Oh
Yeah.
my god.
I don't think
Um,
I can ever abandon where's my super suit. Like I lost my
ever,
keys. Where's my
ever.
super suit?
Like I see so many animated films, and if like there has to be like something that like you remember that movie for. And for me, like if it's not Edna, if it's not none of the fights, it's definitely the fucking super suit scene.
Yeah.
Um, I lost my keys. Where is my super suit? um,
Everything.
Syndrome shows up like the fake ass hero he is, and tries to take down the droid that he controls. But again, the whole theme of the Omni droid is that it's smarter, like it's smarter than him. Um,
Yeah.
so it outsmarts him, and it actually takes Syndrome out for a good part of the last act here. Um,
Yeah. It kind of
like
ties into everything that he's done all the way up until that point. It's like you didn't You're not seeing the whole picture. You're not thinking things all the way through every
Yeah.
single time.
It's like he's trying to prove a point, but like to no one. You know what I mean? Like, we get this sequence of the family like uh, diving into a city from an RV, which they jacked earlier from the facility, from a rocket. And Rachel, this is a crazy visual. Like, because their family dynamic, and I love stuff like this, really shines through the like this last part here. Because like you have Dash and Violet in the back seat, and they're like, "Are we there yet?" And he's like, "We'll get there when we get there." And he
Love
opens
that.
the window, and he opens the window, and Elastigirl is stretched to full capacity, keeping this rocket intact as they dive through the city. And he tells the kids to buckle up, and they probably go flying at again 1,000 miles an hour onto a busy highway. And this is where like it really shines too. Like they're talking and like they're arguing about which like exit to take. Like
Mm-hmm.
you gotta take 75. No, that'll take me downtown. Okay, no, get in the right lane. Like it's very, very funny. Even in like this very serious situation, I had those kind. Like I said, like the movie's very grounded, but like scenes like this are like so good to have. Um,
Yeah. I was like watching it and it reminded me of an Uber ride I had last night. Very similar driving skills. It was making me so anxious. Like, oh
I
God,
hope
yeah.
not.
That like I'm about to miss the exit and then oh no,
Very
wrong
similar
exit.
driving skills. Are you okay?
No. Mm-mm. I was very much triggered with PTSD watching Bob drive that RV. No, it was fine. But it was like really chaotic. And also
Yeah, it
I
was.
agree with the traffic thing,
I,
like something
I
about
can't
parents
remember.
arguing. Something about parents arguing about what exit to take specifically. I love that. Like you think you know the best way, but you don't.
It's like just
Ooh,
listen to your wife, dog.
remember.
But they end up getting their perfect parallel park. Um, he tells his family like, hey, like stay back, stay in the car. And he forgets, like he's doing that thing again. She's like, no, we're a team, we stick together. Um, and he like breaks down to his family. He gets real sentimental. He's like, I'm not strong enough. I can't lose you again, not again. This is probably the most sentimental he's been throughout the whole movie. Um,
Hmm.
Even from like the first apology to the torture device that they were in, like this scene right here is like very much like when the way he said "I can't lose you again" like really got me. It's like, oh my god. But their moment is cut short because the Omni droid sees them, tries to kill them. Um, a big fight sequence ensues. Frozone joins them. Man, I was getting chills throughout this whole scene here, just like seeing all of them. It's like the first time they've all been together since like the beginning of the movie. Um,
Yeah.
they defeat the robot, but like they defeat the robot and a scene, like a whole sequence that I wish was longer. Like I say this a lot. I know it's 2004. People really didn't even believe in this movie, but like, there were like a couple killer scenes where like Mr. Incredible throws Syndrome's remote to Dash, and he tells him to go long, and he
Oh yeah,
literally
yeah,
just
yeah.
like takes off like across water, everything. Um, they all work together. The droids like they remember that they like start throwing um they like start throwing Mr. Incredible through buildings. Syndrome's like doing its best to stop its path, freeze it, break the put walls in front of it. Very, very cool. Violet ends up stealing the remote because she goes invisible. Omnidroid doesn't see it. Um, Bob realizes that the only thing that can penetrate it is itself. Um, Picks it up, tells Helen to press the button, and I love this scene for a number of reasons. But like Samuel L. Jackson dialogue is always so funny in these scenes. It's like, you got the remote. The remote for what? What does it control? The robot? Like he's very on
Yeah.
point with this character. Like I tell he was having so much fun. Um, but there's a scene where he has the robot's like claw, and he's like, "Hey, press the button so I can send it and destroy it." And Helen's not pressing the button, and he goes, "What are you waiting for?" And she goes, "A closer target." And I was
Yeah.
like, well, like most films, I think just write off the idea of like, of course it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
But it's lines like that that's like, oh, not only is this like a smart person, but that's like, oh my god, like
Yeah,
that
she's
was a really cool
calculated.
detail. I love, like, I'm gonna keep saying this thing's praises. I love that scene so much. Um, so when yeah, she's very like like from the whole movie's building up like that moment, and all of them from her just felt earned because it was like that was just very smart in that moment. Like, it's approaching us, we're in imminent danger, our kids, our friends. Like, what are you waiting for? You only got one shot. I'm making sure you hit it. You know.
Yeah.
Um, so they defeat the robot. Syndrome's pissed. This is the scene I referenced earlier. There's like these two old guys that come out of nowhere, and they go, "Now that's old school."
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, who the fuck are these guys?
I feel
I
like
I even like looked up the entire transcript for the movie, and I was like, they were just described as old man. I don't know who these people are. They just like,
man,
I couldn't find any significance these people had at all. Um, I was like, okay. so, um, so they get an escort back to their house, and there's like a presidential sound cue. Do you remember that? Like, it
no.
transitions to the limo, and there's like a dan 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 dan. Like,
I think okay, now this is jogging my memory. The now this is old school guys. I think we're just there to establish like the public's perspective because prior to people were getting angry that they were like saving them, and then it's like oh like a turnaround like oh yeah, now that's what I'm talking about.
well, that's old school. Get off my screen,
But
bro.
I remember it, like they have getting presidential treatment in the limo, and Dash is like obsessed with the power windows.
Yeah, he's like, look at this car. He's like running around the car. Um, Rick Dicker's in the car though, and he has one of the greatest lines in the movie. He says, "We've seized all of Syndrome's assets. If he so much as sneezes, we'll be there with a hanky and a pair of handcuffs."
Oh my god, yeah.
uh, which is that's the most gangster thing I've ever heard in my life. Um, Helen listened to these leftover voicemails by Kari, and they get more and more frantic. Like, he's like, I'm getting really weirded out. And they're like, I think your son has some special needs abilities. They're like,
Oh my god,
just,
yeah.
yeah, must be
All of
very
those
scary to hear
calls.
that. But the last one's very calm. She's like, thank you for sending a replacement. And she's like, replacement? I didn't send a replacement. They rush in the house, and Syndrome freezes them, and he tries to kidnap the baby. um, Parents, don't beat your kids. He's kidnapping the baby. I just like phrasing it like that. He legit compromised their living position and tried to kidnap their child, and claims that he was going to raise him better than he ever could and be a
That's like the
mentor.
biggest insult you could do to like that was because for Syndrome and Mr. Incredible, like there's a huge pride thing. So it's like not like, oh, I'm gonna take your son and kill him or something. It's like I'm gonna take your son and I'm gonna
In
raise him.
a, I'm gonna raise your son
Like
better
he's
than you
gonna call
ever
me
could.
dad. It's not gonna know who you are. That's some sick. That's
That is
also
the most.
very dark.
That made me gag. Well, it was crazy. Like, bursts a hole through the ceiling, escapes with Jack Jack. Jack Jack's crying. Helen's clearly freaking out. Jack Jack turns around, makes eye contact with Syndrome, and he first of all, he Johnny Storms Syndrome. He catches him, he lights himself on fire, right?
Oh my god, the outline of the baby in the flames is so creepy.
Bro, just like the hollowed eyes and mouth, and it's just fire. I was like, oh my god, this is 2004, bro. And then he turns himself into like vibranium or something, like just a solid baby, like metal, and then like gets very heavy, and then he starts vibrating, like he starts shaking very intensely, and then turns into my favorite power of his, which is the
Oh my
demon baby.
god, it's
Um,
insane. It was
and
so freaky.
the demon baby or the shaking
Yes,
of the demon,
the demon baby, the
the demon
teeth.
baby comes off, starts crawling all over him like a spider, picks his hair out. While this is happening, his family still doesn't know he has powers, so they don't know what's happening. They're like, "What's happening? What's happening?" Helen wants Bob to throw something, but he's like, "No, I might hit my baby," which is a very astute observation there. And she's like, "Oh, throw me." Which I don't know if this is a payoff to something earlier, but she whispers it first. She's like, "I can't. It might hit Jack Jack." He's like, "Throw me." Like she whispers it. And then when Jack Jack breaks one of Syndrome's boots, he drops them, and she goes, "Bob, throw me!" And like he does it with no hesitation. Like it was a very cool scene. Like throw me, like launches her like a dart, catches Jack Jack, does a little parachute thing. She goes, "Look at mommy, look at mommy." And Jack Jack does his face like like looks at the plane exploding above him because Syndrome, Bob threw the car. This is very poetic. Bob threw the car that he was able to afford from technically working for Syndrome at Syndrome's plane, and it caused it to malfunction. He slipped into one of the turbines. His cape gets snatched into the jet turbine, and Syndrome doesn't make it to Incredibles 2.
Yeah, I love the cape. I was like, yes, this was perfect.
And you know what I love about this? I heard an interesting theory, and I believe this wholeheartedly, that Edna is the one responsible for superhero suits, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't doubt for a second in my mind that Edna did not make Syndrome's suit. So I can bet that Edna knew he had some ill intentions and purposely made that suit with a cape on it.
That's a good theory. I think so.
I can like bet that because he died exactly the way Arrow Girl or whatever her name was, and she was like flying next to that plane in that montage earlier. No capes. Way worse than being sucked into a vortex. So the plane debris flies down, and Violet's finally able to protect the family with the force field, so it doesn't affect them. Helen gives us some more reassurance, which is really cool. And you know who we see for the last time?
I don't.
We see Billy.
Oh, yeah.
Billy's just chilling. He goes, "That was totally wicked." I'm like, how did you not get hurt this entire time?
Billy's invincible.
I didn't know how long he's been sitting there. We've reached the end of the movie, like the very final scene. Val finally gets a date with Tony Ridinger. She seems way more confident. In fact, she even makes the date. She's like, "My house, Friday, 7:30." Like she like he's almost taken back by like, "Oh yeah, of course, yeah." Like it's very cool to see. Cool way to pay that off. Is one of my favorite scenes of the movie where like Dash is running track, but the family is rooting for him to come in second, which confuses another family.
Yeah, the facial expressions from the guy next to him was so funny. He looked like so confused and also kind of disgusted and concerned.
Like, what the? He's like, not dumb. He said, "Make it close. Just make it close. Come in second." Like, it was very, very fun. And like the way Dash takes off in the beginning, like very smug, like just running with his hands very close to each other,
pretending
like,
to run.
Pretending to run is crazy. I like knowing like he could win this race, but it's a very cool payoff. When they leave, the Underminer.
Oh my god, I love that.
The Underminer comes from beneath the ground like a giant drill. He makes this big announcement. No, he didn't say he said behold, like he was Jesus Christ. Behold the Underminer. He's like, "I declare war," which is crazy. He said, "I declare war," and like his voice kind of fades out because we transition back to the family who starts putting their mask on. Even Jack Jack has a mask on, which was really, really cute. And Mr. Incredible opens up his shirt like he's Superman, revealing the eye. And that is the end of The Incredibles, which, oh my God, still a great movie. Not just a great Pixar movie, but just a great superhero movie and all. Just everything about it. It's so good.
I wish I wrote down what he said, because I remember the line that the Underminer had was like my last take about that literal humor, where he's like something about you guys are all above me and there's nothing underneath me. And I was like, oh my god.
And I remember that now because he said it like with a very weird cadence. He's like, "You guys were all above me, but nothing it's beneath me, like very
Yeah.
odd. Like, um, I was like, dude, they're gonna get killed. We found out his fate in Incredibles 2, which I assume we won't watch for a very long
Wow.
time because of Rachel's post
Boy,
traumatic stress disorder.
I'm gonna be
Uh,
just straight up. I will never watch that movie again.
so
I can say that with
okay,
confidence.
so I saved this for the very end, because we're gonna have some post thoughts, and then we're gonna like not like wrap it up, but like kind of the final thoughts, so we can kind of contextualize this whole thing when I get to editing it. So at the time of this podcast, Rachel, I found out some very, very interesting, exciting news that I think was meant to be. Um, Ask me what that news is.
I know what the news is. What's the news?
You know what the news is?
Yeah.
Well, I need you to tell the people
Why do I have to tell the people?
because I feel like I talked a lot, and I want to hear your voice more.
Okay, okay. They're currently working on the next Incredibles movie.
They are currently working on The Incredibles 3 with Brad Bird returning to direct. Details were very, very scarce. I don't even think the movie's going to come out for like another 2, maybe 2.5 years.
2 years.
Probably 2 years, definitely. They didn't even give like usually they give like a general date, like summer, fall, winter, 2025. They didn't even say that. So definitely two, worst case scenario, 3 years. But Incredibles 3 is coming. So we're going to get a trilogy of my favorite Pixar film uh, ever. So that was really exciting. And I found that out today. I was visiting a friend's house, and she's never even seen The Incredibles. And I was telling her about the Lilo and Stitch live action because I love Lilo and
Ooh.
Stitch. Um, it's one of the things I used to fall asleep to as a kid. I love that show, and that movie. So I was telling her about the Lilo and Stitch thing, and she goes, "Yeah, they're also making The Incredibles." I said, "No, they aren't." And like I looked it up, and I was like, literally, I was almost in tears. I was like, "Don't do this to me now, man." I was like, because
Yeah.
being, so I guess that's what I said. The Incredibles is by far my favorite Pixar film. Love Toy Story, love Cars, love Monsters Inc. But The Incredibles is like always my go-to.
Wow.
How do you feel about this movie after um, watching it again, or how have you always felt about it? Is that like up there in your favorite?
I've always liked it. It's never been in my favorites. It's just been like in a category of its own to me, though. Like, I wouldn't compare it to any other Pixar film or any other film generally.
Okay, what was your favorite part about the movie?
Super Suit. I think I really loved
Just one word.
Samuel L. Jackson's performance. Like, it was so natural and realistic. Like, he just talks like somebody you would run into at Kroger. Like, I don't know. He's just really, really good at not like overdoing it. Because a lot of times people who aren't like regularly voice acting kind of go to like animated, if that makes sense. Like, I could just like see him live action walking around talking like that.
Yeah, he
It
plays
was
the
good.
part extremely well.
I love
Uh,
it. Oh,
did you have a favorite character?
um, probably Honey.
I just literally imagine you pausing the scene after she said that line, like, "Ooh, girl, you ain't said none but a word, girl. Hell yeah, like I'm the greatest good you are ever gonna get." But
Period.
just culturally, the impact this movie had. Um, I remember seeing the second one in theaters, and I remember being like, "Man, okay, is okay. This is some Spug lore for you. When I was 4 years old, my grandparents took me to see Finding Nemo in theaters, and I don't remember that, but they said that I was like crying a lot. I guess the idea of
That is so funny.
fish on this huge screen was like crazy. Is Finding Nemo Pixar? It isn't, right?
Uh, don't know.
Let me look up a
Let
poster
me
real quick.
let me checking. Yeah, I think it is. Wait, it is. It's
It is
Pixar.
Pixar. Oh man, that's like a good runner-up for like my favorite movie. I love Finding Nemo.
I
Um,
cried. I cried on Finding Nemo too.
I cry about it every time. That same friend
Wait,
that told me
what
about
part?
Incredibles 3. Huh?
What part did you cry at? It
Um,
makes a
which
difference.
part did I cry at? The most or first?
First.
uh, well, first, the Barracuda ripping through um dozens of my man's eggs and cracking one, which was insane. Like that, even then, like that movie. Finding Nemo was made in 2003. Credit was made in 2004. Like for a movie that takes place solely underwater, it has some good water graphics, but that's just that image alone of like light barely passing through the surface, so you just see like the water is one of my like scariest things ever. But like seeing a barracuda fish just stare into the soul of a clownfish, like
Yeah.
the
For
moment you
me,
twitch, it's a wrap for you.
the mother like sacrificing herself to trying to save
Trying
her
to.
babies, that's what made me cry. Like her contemplating it and then just like knowing, I was like, oh yeah, that's it. You got me there.
Um, I also, I mean, Nemo getting kidnapped was sad. Um,
I didn't think it was sad. I was
um,
one of those people who were like, that's what you get for being disobedient. Like your dad literally told you not to do that and then you did it. And that's what happens.
I mean, then you got
I was a
taken,
mean kid.
but that's not what made me cry. What made me cry was like the panic and we'll have to talk about this, but like Marlin, panicking, like he is about to keep up, but then he loses him, and he's like, oh my god, like Nemo. Has anyone seen Nemo? Like we don't know what that is. Um, but this was we did a great job not acknowledging it too much. Rachel, as a streamer, I don't know how hard that was on you. I've noticed the chat a lot here commenting on the movie with us. Thank you guys so much for that, loving your thoughts, the funny comments. I read them all, but we just had to kind of streamline it into only keeping it between us. Rachel, I appreciate you for that. Um, and letting me use your platform for this idea, which I thoroughly enjoyed. The longer we do this, I think there's a lot of animated material out there, a lot
Mm.
of it. And so, because I picked The Incredibles for a scene I saw, and I love this movie, I adore it so much, to be the first episode, I always thought it would be cool if we could take turns. So you decide what we watch, and then it'll be like homework, and I'm like, oh, I get to watch that, and I go watch that, and we talk it, and that'll be your pick.
Mm. I'm I don't know. I feel like doom and gloomy. Any animated film?
Any animated film, it could be Nickelodeon, Disney, Pixar, DreamWorks. It could be a mainstream one of in mid budget, low budget. It could even be a
I really like, well, I don't really like, but it made an impact on me growing up. The movie Nine.
nine.
Mm-hmm.
Who's that made by?
It's from 2009, a sci-fi fantasy. Um, okay, it was directed by Shane Acker. I don't know who's Lux Animation. I don't know. I remember it was in the movie theaters, and my dad was like, "Oh, this is a." It looks okay. No, it doesn't say. It says who was distributed by, but it's like literally everybody. My dad just figured it was like an animated movie, so he would take me to see that. It traumatized me the first time I watched it, and then I watched it years later at home, and it traumatized me again. I love it.
Okay, so I am looking at this movie.
Mhm.
Like I just looked it up,
Mhm.
and I'm seeing it, and I'm looking at just like the images, and I'm going, holy shit. um, but this is also really cool because one of the things that excited me about this was that I knew I was really, Rachel, you have no idea. I was really hoping you'd say something I'd never heard of, because realistically, I could probably get through this entire Incredibles episode just off memory because I've seen it so much. But
Yeah.
what this does now, and it's not even a long movie, it says it's like an hour long. So, and now what this prompts me to do is actually lock in because I've never seen it before, you know, and maybe
Yeah.
even watch it like 2 or 3 times to pick
You
up on
should.
those details I missed the first time.
You should watch
Um,
it during different times of the day for
and it's a
impact.
PG-13 movie. Um,
It's scary. It's
it
it's very. I don't even know how to explain it. You'll see.
I'm telling you right now, this art style alone is making me uncomfortable. uh,
The color
uh,
palette, everything about it is like set up for discomfort. I will say that. That's all I will say.
so would you say that next Saturday or a time you're free, we can do a 9 episode?
Yes. I will let you know.
Let me know.
I will
You heard it
let
here
you know.
first,
I'll
ladies and
get
gentlemen.
my people will get back to you.
This episode, please do, in your own Rachel way. I know I'll probably get a text at like 9 p.m. on a Wednesday randomly. I'm just kidding. Rachel's great. Rachel's great for doing this. I can't wait to start watching this. I can't wait to start taking notes on it. Um, and I can't wait to talk about 9 in the next episode.
If you're
And
watching this, you should also watch 9. Just because I like when films traumatize other people too, so we can trauma bond together.
whoever's going to listen to this, watch 9 so you can kind of be in the loop for the next episode when it inevitably goes live. Go follow Rachel Unscripted on Twitch. She was kind enough to be a part of this with me and a potential future co-host, even though her schedules sounds pretty crazy and she's not the best at texting. That's not a dig. She said that herself. Um, but
I
she's
probably
been
won't
great.
get back to you.
But this was a pretty solid first episode. The Incredibles, 10 out of 10 movie, great Pixar movie. Can't wait to do more Pixar movies in the future. The next episode will be 9. Tune in for that. Rachel, thank you so much.
Thanks.
And
I literally, okay, no, you finish. You close out so that you can have it for your video.
it's been great. And we'll see you guys with 9 on the next episode. Bye.
Bye.